Maybe. computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Can you guys hear me now? Maybe. Okay, I think it seems good. My apologies for the late start. I was having some problems. OBS kind of lost its brains and I had to kind of reset up some of my scenes and stuff. But we are here now. So I'm still running tests. So essentially I am working with web motion capture. Now my official 3D model still isn't done yet. It's still in the works, and there's some things I need to I need to work out. I noticed when I was working with the model during the tests the last few days that there's still a few things that I need to kind of work out. So I'm just going to be working with the default model in web motion capture, which actually is one of the starter default models in Vroid Studio. So let me see here if I can get this up and going, and there we go. All right. So I think this is the first time I've actually broken out this background. But it looks like it's working well. My frame rate's taking a bit of a dump, but that's kind of par for the course. So anyway, hello and welcome. For anybody who's actually new here, my name is Kuriseru, and I like doing chill, relaxed, comfy streams. Just setting up a place where you can kind of kick back, relax, chill, and hang out with some friends. I like to joke that, hey, my specialty is putting you all to sleep, so feel free to come in, kick back, relax, and welcome to the chill zone. So anyway, no, this is not my normal model. I am not doing, or at least I'm not normally doing the whole male trapped in a female avatar thing. This just happens to be the default model in the 3D tracking software that I'm testing out. I'm still working on my official model, so I kind of broke it out as a work in progress, but there were some things that were buggy with it, so so I'm not going to use it for this stream. And since the whole purpose is that I'm still testing the 3D software, I didn't break out the standard ghost PNG for this one. Although I think it'd be kind of funny if I could manage to make a 3D model of the ghost, then that would actually be kind of awesome. I had originally wanted to go ahead and make a live 2D version of the ghost PNG that I've used in the past and kind of update it. but I've pretty much confirmed that trying to run VTube Studio on this machine alongside OBS and pretty much anything else that I decide to do is going to bring it to its knees. So I'm kind of tabling using VTube Studio with a Live 2D model until I can actually upgrade and get equipment with a much better GPU. But I have noticed that I can use the 3D model for some games, like for example RimWorld and Stardew Valley. I think that I might not have any problem with those games, but worst comes to worst, I'll just have to fall back and use the PNG tube. So either way, I'm still gonna be operable. It's kind of interesting. Why didn't the other Stream Elements message show up in chat? Hey, 180. How's it going? Good to see you. How's it hanging, bro? You about to head out? Oh, yeah, I mean, it's like, what, working hours for you, right? No worries. Glad you stopped by and said hi. Yeah, hanging. I'm doing alright. I have gotten over the colds that I'd kind of caught the last couple of days because of all the weather changes and stuff, so, hey. I figured I would sit here and, go ahead and run that reading stream that I was talking about. So, yeah, man, I mean, stay sane at work and everything. Thanks for stopping by, and hey, if you can check in, I'll be around for a bit. So anyway, let me see here. All right. So today I am doing a reading stream, and I'm going to be reading, I'm going to actually be reading the intro chapters, or the beginning chapters, to several light novels. Actually, for today's selection, I'll be actually using, I'll be reading novels, the preview excerpts from jnovel.club. So I actually use them a lot. Gratuitous plug. I'm not affiliated by or sponsored by them. I just happen to use their stuff, and I read, and that's where I read a lot of my light novels from. So if you are into light novels, and they also have manga, I recommend giving them a try. Taking a look over at j.novel.club. So anyway, so I've lined up like roughly 7 to kind of go through. This is going to be a series of tests, not only for my setup, but also my voice. I haven't streamed much the last year because I wound up getting a bad case of laryngitis, and it kind of messed with my voice. That, and then having like a few intermittent equipment issues, I was pretty sparse with the streaming, so I am hoping to start turn that back around. So anyway, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to put up the first book that I'll be reading from. Give me a second, let me get this set up here. I actually had wanted to put the image up on screen. Just give me a second, let me go ahead and get this up. I hope you guys are having a good time chilling and just relaxing and stuff and having an otherwise great day or night. So one thing I've definitely noticed is that the computer is definitely slower. There's a pretty hefty CPU and GPU load. Alright, come on. So it's just not gonna let me, huh. Alright. So, the first book that I am going to go ahead and read. This one is actually just made into an anime, I think, over the winter or the spring season. Villainess level 99. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the demon lord. It's an okay series. I enjoyed the first book. There's several volumes out right now. And the anime was good. I guess if you're into a strong female lead and everything, it's a great book, it's a great story. The one thing that I'm not a big fan of from both the story and the anime, I'm not that big on the whole uber dense protagonist type thing. So, you know the typical protag who just can't quite read the room for whatever reason, whether it's their confidence level or whatever else. It's the whole inability to kind of read that what they're doing is squicking or whatever other people, or making other people uncomfortable and everything. It's kind of so-so. It has to be done well, and unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of stories apparently haven't really gotten down too well. But all told, this was a pretty fun read. So, definitely worth having a listen. So, that being said, actually, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the title so that this is what I'm actually reading. Okay, come on. And I just discovered that I can't copy and paste into the title streams and stuff in OBS. Ain't that a bitch? Alright. And did it change? Yes. Alrighty. Okay, so give me a sec, and let's jump right in a minute. Okay, the whole motion tracking, the hand tracking, everything, that's actually pretty awesome, except for the whole part where I can't mute that the gestures and stuff so that you can't actually see. So when I go lean over to pick up a drink or anything else, or if I lean into the mic, everything shows up and just busts me out in 4K, so go figure. But anyway. Alright, Villainess level 99. Prologue. The eldest daughter of Count Dulkness, Yumiela Dulkness, level 99. We were gathered in the Great Hall of the Royal Academy, the school for the Kingdom of Valshine's Children of the Aristocracy, where the entrance ceremony had just concluded. The warm, inviting atmosphere of the occasion dissipated as my level was announced, and the excitement of the teachers and upper-level students greeting the incoming students vanished as everyone stared at me, speechless. At that moment, I came to the realization that I would already have to give up on my goal of being as inconspicuous as possible. As I accepted my fate, I began to think back on the events that led to me reaching level 99 as if to escape from my current reality. I was 5 years old when I regained memories of my past life and realized that I'd been reincarnated as the Villainess of an Otome game. It all started when I was looking into the mirror in my room and felt strange about how young I appeared. The face reflected back at me was a doll-like face with dark black eyes. Though my eyes had been black in my past life, this was a much deeper black that seemed to consume all the surrounding light. The perfectly straight hair also complemented the other features. If I wore a kimono, I might look like a Japanese doll. Upon thinking about my own appearance, I realized that I knew terms that I'd never heard before, like kimono and Japanese doll. From there, my memories of my past life came back one after another. I was born during the Heisei period in Japan. I was an introverted female college student, and I probably was killed by a car that crashed into the sidewalk. In a matter of seconds, 20-something years of memories flashed before my eyes, and I was left gasping for air while my heart was beating out of my chest. All I could do was crouch down, close my eyes, and take deep breaths until I calmed down. When I felt a little better, I thought about what I knew of my current life, only to realize that I didn't know much at all. The extent of my knowledge was that my name was Yumiela Dulkness, I was 5 years old, and I was an aristocrat. I had almost no memories that took place beyond the doors of my bedroom, nor any memories of meeting my parents. Though the servants did bare minimum in caring for me, they didn't offer much in conversation. I suspected they were avoiding me, so I was left not even knowing the name of the kingdom I was living in. Naturally, my first course of action was to bombard the maid with my arsenal of questions. She was surprised that the quiet child, who she had barely spoken to before, was suddenly so talkative, but she took the time to answer everything I asked about. Through my interrogation, I found out that I was in the kingdom of Valshine and that I lived in the Lord's mansion on the Dolkness estate, where I was the eldest daughter of the Count. My parents lived in their mansion in the royal capital and hadn't returned to this estate since before I was born. Though the maid was hesitant, I coaxed her into spilling the reason why I was sent here alone. She said it was because my parents wanted to distance themselves from me, their black-haired child. Apparently, black hair was seen as unlucky and a symbol of evil in this kingdom, which explains why the servants around the mansion were so unfriendly. A quiet little girl with black hair would seem creepy. On top of that, my parents, who despise me, are their bosses. It only makes sense that they'd be cautious in dealing with me. Aside from all that, the name Yumiella Dolkness rang quite a few bells. It was the name of a character in an Otome RPG game that I played in my past life. She'd been the Villainess, or more accurately, the hidden boss. The title of the game was Light Magic and the Hero, commonly known as LMH. It was a world with swords and magic, and despite being a commoner, the main character could use light magic. Thus, she was allowed to attend the Royal Academy, where she worked together with her love interests to go stronger and eventually defeat the Demon Lord. It was a very classic story. At worst, it was predictable. The game alternated between the Academy portion, where you raised the affection levels of the love interests, and the RPG portion, where you worked together with them to defeat monsters. Yumiella was a typical villainess. She occasionally appeared during the Academy portion of the gameplay to bother the main character and get in her way. However, as the story progressed, she appeared less and less, and by the time the main characters began their journey to defeat the resurrected Demon Lord, she was already forgotten. But that wasn't the end of Yumiella's story. After the game's ending, if you went back to the Demon Lord's castle, there was a hidden boss that appeared as bonus content. Most players were probably shocked to see her as the hidden boss. That's right. The hidden boss was Yumiella Dolkness, also known as me. Of course, as a hidden boss, she was much stronger than the final boss. As most players probably experienced when going up against her with a party that just barely defeated the final boss, you'd get your ass kicked and end up having to flee the scene. Wearing equipment with dark magic resistance and then using light magic to weaken the damage you take from the dark magic may have worked on the Demon Lord, but Yumiella would just hit you with a physical attack and kill your whole party. If you took the opposite strategy of defending against physical attacks, you'd only be left vulnerable to her strong dark magic. The RPG portion of LMH was actually quite well balanced for an Otome game. All of the enemies had weaknesses to physical or magical attacks of various elements, and exploiting them was the key to beating the game. But Yumiella? There was no other strategy other than to level grind out and beat her with brute force. She was the embodiment of unreasonableness. Players called her the Balance Breaker. According to a member of the production team, she was only added in because they felt that the Villainess didn't have enough screen time. She was built to be strong enough that grinding to the maximum level was the minimum requirement to defeat her. In contrast, players only needed to be around level 70 to defeat the Demon Lord. The developers made Yumiella detest the heroine for getting closer to all of the love interests filled so much that she awakened the ability to use dark magic. The reason wasn't that deep. They probably didn't put too much into it since the hidden boss was just bonus content added after the fact. I was someone who loved level grinding in my past life, so of course I'd beaten her once. Though I will say, Yumiella must have morphed from a villainess into an entirely different beast because she was able to hold her own against my party of 4 level 99 heroes. However, it still would have been premature to say that this was indeed the universe of LMH just because my name and appearance matched that of Yumiella. I had to gather more information to be sure. When I told the maid I wanted to learn how to read, a tutor was immediately hired, and my lessons began. Once I learned my new skill, I proceeded to spend all my time in the mansion's library. I read through everything, regardless of the genre, from picture books to discourse on history and politics, and found too many similarities between the game and this world. The names of the members of the royal families, detailed names of places, legends about the kingdom, the list goes on. As a result, I had no doubt that this was the world of LMH and that I was Yumiella Dolkness. The realization tormented me. Yumiella was the hidden boss of this world, whose purpose was to despise the main character and her companions, only to be defeated in the end. Was there any point to my existence? Was there any point in living this life? I was a hidden boss, so awful that I was the embodiment of unreasonableness. That means I have the potential to be stronger than the final boss, more athletic than the swordsman in the main character's party, have stronger magic than the mage, and use dark magic, which is limited to enemy characters. Hold on. Isn't this kind of awesome? My inner gamer was ecstatic. All I had to do was not meddle with the main story of LMH. I could keep my distance from the main character and the love interests and let them deal with the Demon Lord. If that doesn't work, I'll just have to secretly take down the Demon Lord. With Yumiella's stats, that should be an easy insta-kill. I have to start grinding. From then on, I would sneak out of the mansion behind the servants' backs to level grind. As expected of a hidden boss, my base stats were already quite high, and I was able to defeat monsters even as a child. I was also able to use dark magic without any issues. It seemed that hate had nothing to do with it. Efficiency is vital to level grinding, so I bought items that increased experience by selling the magic stones that monsters dropped. When I was no longer satisfied with the monsters that appeared near the town, I moved on to the dungeons in the mountains, where I hunted monsters endlessly. I spent roughly 10 years level grinding, and when I turned 15, I received a letter from my father. It was the first message I received from my parents in all years of my life, and the gist of it was, attend the Royal Academy. While you're at the academy, become acquainted with as many high-ranking noblemen as possible. Your future partner will marry into our family and be my successor, so he doesn't need to be the eldest of his family. I was immediately taken to the royal capital by carriage, and promptly thrown into the academy dormitories. Really guys? Is this okay with you? Your own child doesn't even know what you look like. Every noble child attended the Royal Academy for 3 years, starting at age 15. The academy was tied to the origins of this kingdom, as it was founded by the hero and saintess who defeated the Demon Lord. Because of its history, the academy not only focused on academic education, but combat education as well. Consequently, when the kingdom was facing an emergency, aristocrats were encouraged to fight on the front lines, though in practice, this rule seems to have become outdated. The exterior of the academy was gorgeous enough to believe it was the royal palace. Though I had seen it on screen when I played the game, it was absolutely breathtaking in person. As for the dorms, I was, of course, provided my own room, as well as separate servants' quarters, making me very aware of my status as the daughter of a count. Apparently, I barely made it to the academy on time because the next day was already the entrance ceremony. I dressed in my uniform and headed to the ceremony, but I couldn't help but feel that people were staring. I've learned enough etiquette not to be laughed at, so it shouldn't be that. Could it be my face? I know I'm not a doe-eyed chow anymore, but I don't think I look particularly evil. After some time, I came to the realization that everyone was staring at my head. It was my black hair that was attracting all the attention. Some were very obvious about their disgust, not even trying to hide it, which made me a bit worried about my future at the academy. The disdain for black hair in this kingdom seemed to run very deep. It may have been because some legends said the demon lord had black hair, and all the villains in the fairy tales of this kingdom were always dressed in black from head to toe. It was no wonder that everyone subconsciously equated the color black to evil. I was planning to hide my powers and act like an NPC, but I wasn't sure if I could after standing out that much on my first day. As long as I don't interact with the main character and the love interests, I should at least be able to avoid the hidden boss route. The entrance ceremony began and proceeded without any issues. Though I wanted to take a peek at the main character and her love interests during the headmaster's welcome speech, I remembered that the new students were supposed to introduce themselves at the end of the ceremony. With no need to find them now, I sat back in my chair with a nonchalant expression. However, that didn't last very long. After the headmaster's speech, there was an announcement that level assessments would be conducted for new students. Huh? No one told me about this. I barely managed to stop myself from shooting to my feet in shock. One after another, students walked to the front and placed their hand on a crystal-like magical instrument to get their level assessed. Most were in the single digits, with only one student over level 10. I don't know what level I am. I had never measured my level, nor did I know what level I was when I regained the memories of my past life. A 5-year-old shouldn't be able to defeat a monster on their own, so I had to be level 1 by default. I was probably only able to take down monsters because I was extremely athletic and had magic that was just potent enough. Everyone was cheering for the level 10 student, so coming in at level 5 would most likely be my best bet not to stand out. Level 5, I hope I'm around level 5. I would be so happy if I were around level 5. But I'd been level grinding for the last 10 years. On top of that, I'd been using my knowledge of video game mechanics to utilize effective items, and I'd been training in dungeons. Of course, there was no mercy for me, and eventually my turn came just like everyone else's. I walked up to the front but froze in front of the magical instrument. The elderly headmaster spoke kindly, and it reassured me that there wasn't anything embarrassing about being level 1 as a new student, but that wasn't the problem. I prepared myself for the coming result and made a selfish wish. Please, O magical instrument, malfunction and give me a 1-digit level. Alas, my wish went unanswered, and we now return to the beginning. Chapter 1. The hidden boss enters the academy. The first to speak up after silence had taken over the academy's great hall was the headmaster. "I'm sure it just malfunctioned," he called over a member of the staff. "Have the backup magical instrument prepared for assessment." The backup was immediately brought out, and I placed my hand on it as instructed. Unfortunately, the result hadn't changed. After a pause, the headmaster spoke again. "It seems you're a level 99 after all." In an effort to confirm if the magical instrument was functioning properly, teachers took turns assessing their own levels. The previously silent hall began to fill with the murmuring of uneasy students, so I allowed myself to escape the discomfort by thinking back on my level grinding once more. I was already at the max level? All that extra EXP I worked so hard for. What a waste. Finally, the teachers concluded that the magical instrument was indeed not broken, and one teacher made their way toward me. Lady Yumiella, do you have any idea as to why your level is so high? I didn't just have ideas, I probably knew the exact reason. For a moment, I considered coming up with an excuse, but the thought of having everyone suspicious of me for 3 years made telling the truth sound like the better idea. I'd rather take action now than spend my days terrified of the truth coming out. Yes, I can think of a few reasons why this assessment is correct. The magical instrument itself is working properly. You must have done something to meddle with it, did you not? No, I did not. Level 99 should be my correct level, I said tentatively. You may not know this, but in order to increase your level, you must defeat monsters. We'll know if you're lying, so just tell us the truth. I was telling the truth, and yet I was under suspicion for falsifying my level. It's a hard world out here for honest people. All of a sudden, the headmaster spoke up in a powerful voice that reverberated throughout the entire hall. Everyone, please settle down. Whether or not she speaks the truth will become clear when classes begin. With the teachers not any closer to an explanation that would satisfy them and the students' unease increasing, he probably felt that he had to say something. The headmaster turned to address me. Lady Yumiella, finish your introduction and return to your seat. I could see his glare from my peripheral vision. It seemed that even the headmaster was suspicious of me. Would they believe me if I blew up the school with magic? I gave up on trying to explain my situation with words, and decided to keep my introduction short. I'm Yumiella Darkness. It's a pleasure to meet you all. As I returned to my seat, I began to mentally prepare for the worst-case scenario. I'll just leave the kingdom on my own. I can probably strong-arm my way through the borderlands. The level assessment and introductions continued in the apprehensive atmosphere. If things had progressed according to the game's story, the main character should have stood out as the only commoner in the incoming class. However, her assessment and introduction took place with no particular attention drawn to her, and the entrance ceremony came to an end. Sorry about that, Miss Heroine. It should be noted that, just like in the game, she was at level 1. Yeah, the series was actually fun to watch, and you assume the material is for another season? As a matter of fact, yes. I was actually pretty surprised. So like I said, the series got turned into an anime, and to be perfectly honest, the anime literally only covered book 1. And right now, there are at least 5 volumes that are out. Volume 5 is actually currently being, translated into English, and of course there's about a 2-year lag between the Japanese release versus the English licensing and translation. So I'd have to look up exactly how many volumes are out, but yeah, the whole fact that that the entire 12 episode anime only covered book 1, pretty impressive. So, and yeah, book 2 actually is a pretty interesting arc. So, you see a lot of the characters that get introduced, they kind of start coming into their own and start actually having a purpose, which is kind of funny to put it, but that's basically what happens. Yep. Nope. No, man, that's not even the beginning of the game. Well, I mean, I guess It would be, you know, I mean, because like what they did kill the demon lord and everything else. You know, they did all. Yeah, oops, spoiler, but yeah, I mean, they did go through the basics of the game in the series, which is a little bit different than some other Otome game type books, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, but yeah, you know, just because the game part ended doesn't mean that the world goes away. There is a whole hell of a lot more, and it just literally gets more interesting for Yumiella and company. But yeah, if you like reading novels, because I know a lot of people don't, like, you know, they'll rather watch the anime, or, you know, at best they'll read, like, you know, the manga. But if you like words, I can definitely recommend the light novel on this one. Definitely worth a read. After the entrance ceremony, a buffet party was held to welcome the new students. Since I didn't know anyone, no one seemed to want to get to know me. I hung back in the corner of the venue. I should start thinking about my plans for my future here. If nothing else, I didn't want to get involved with any drama related to the revival of the Demon Lord. I would need to keep my distance from the main character and love interests to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll just wait a little longer and then say I'm not feeling well and head back to my dorm. Just as I was finished coming up with my escape plan, I locked eyes with someone making their way toward me. Speak of the devil. The clearly angry male with fiery red hair making his way toward me was one of the love interests. His name was William Aries, the swordsman of the heroes party. He had an extra strong sense of justice and a short temper. In other words, he was a hothead. Without any sort of preamble, William loudly snapped, "You with the black hair! What kind of trick did you use? Aren't you ashamed of yourself pulling a stunt like that?" Are you talking about the level assessment? What else would I be talking about? I don't know if you just wanted attention or something, but don't you have any pride as an aristocrat? William, who seemed to be a second away from taking a swing at me, was stopped by someone who came chasing after him. Calm down, Will. I understand how you feel, but don't cause a scene at the party. It was Edwin Valshain, the second prince of this kingdom and the main hero of the story, complete with his sparkly blonde hair. He was a magic swordsman, proficient in magic and competent with the blade. Realizing that I was in the presence of the prince, I hastily curtsied. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness. I am Yumiella Dulkness." The Dulkness family. So, a pseudo-centralite, Edwin whispered to himself. He looked up to address me. "Lady Yumiella, Will has worked harder than anyone on his swordsmanship from a young age, and he finally reached level 10 just before entering the academy. What you did made a mockery of his efforts. Why does everyone keep assuming that I cheated? Maybe they'll start believing me if I go on a magic shooting spree. I'm sorry, but my being level 99 is the truth. As the headmaster said, I'm sure you'll understand once classes begin." Prince Edwin was unable to hide his irritation as he spoke. "So you're going to feign ignorance until the end, are you? Are you saying you're stronger than me? You're lucky I don't have a gauntlet to throw down," William lashed out. Is he trying to challenge me to a duel? William, my dear, you should really cherish your life more. As the people around us quieted to listen in on our conversation, the final love interest unsurprisingly appeared. Level 99 isn't even a realistic level to be at. Were you unable to even consider such a basic fact? Well, I suppose not. This fellow with the insulting attitude was Oswald Grimsard, a blue-haired mage with glasses. The three love interests were childhood friends, so close that they called each other by the nicknames of Ed, Will, and Oz. The Golden Orthodox Prince, the Red Fiery Swordsman, and the Blue Cool Mage. This world was full of attractive people, but these three were on another level. However, while they were all good-looking, interacting with them was quite troublesome. Yeah, we need to see Lumi and someone do something in making small people. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to see it, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. And, well, just read the novel. Later volumes. I'll leave it at that. Well, all the love interests are here now. Just my luck. This might have been exciting for a fan of the game, but I was only into the RPG portion. Hey, why don't you say something? William seemed to have gotten impatient with my silence. It seems that I'm unable to get you to believe me, so I mumbled, eager to escape. You're still not fessing up? Is your head completely empty? Are you a compulsive liar or something? Geez, do they kiss their mothers with those mouths? Don't they know that they're just characters in an Otome game? In an effort to end my conversation with them, I tried to change the subject to something that would encourage them to go to the main character. Wasn't there a commoner who uses light magic? She may be having trouble with something. I think it would be best if you checked in on her. Yes, that would probably be much more productive than playing along with your nonsense. I'm sure the Academy will issue a decision regarding your lies soon enough, so be prepared. With that remark, Prince Edwin turned and left with the other two. Ugh, that was exhausting. I better hurry back to the dorm. There are audiobooks for the entire thing on YouTube, so I think I will. Yeah, cool. Having returned to my dorm, I had my maid Rita prepare some tea for me. Despite being a noble already, I couldn't help but be charmed by how aristocratic it felt. Having tea like this was refreshing since, back at the mansion, I only had tea as a part of etiquette classes. My lady, are you sure you're alright with being back so early? I believe the party is still going on. It's fine. It seemed like I wasn't going to be getting friendly with anyone anyways. You won't be able to find a good partner with that kind of attitude. It'll be a problem for the master as well. Rita was a maid working at the Dulkness Mansion in the royal capital, but was reassigned as my attendant yesterday when I entered the academy. The academy had a dining hall, as well as specialized staff for chores such as laundry, making a maid feel unnecessary. However, there was no going against my father's orders. It had only been 2 days since we met, but she took every chance she got to remind me about finding a suitor, likely an order from my father. She was probably also here to supervise me so I wouldn't act out of line. With classes officially starting tomorrow, I'm sure you'll meet someone great, my lady. Isn't the second prince one of your classmates? I've already made quite a bad impression on the second prince. Wait, she doesn't know about all the ruckus at the entrance ceremony? Well, she's not a very good supervisor. I was still curious about the term that Prince Edwin muttered about after hearing my family name and decided to ask Rita. On an unrelated note, do you know what pseudo-centralist means? Someone must have called you that. Don't worry, it's nothing you should concern yourself with. Just as I expected, it didn't seem to be something good. I never said that anyone called me that, but I suspect it's something that describes the Dulkness family, is it not? Rita seemed to give in and began to explain. You know about central aristocrats and provincial aristocrats, right, my lady? Yes, I believe the Dulknesses are provincial aristocrats, since we don't hold any official positions at the royal capital or anything like that. That's correct. With regards to that, pseudo-centralist is a derogatory name for provincial aristocrats who spend all their time in the royal capital without a central position. I see. So basically, it refers to good-for-nothing aristocrats who leave their estate to a deputy and spend their time partying without working in the royal capital. As an employee of said good-for-nothing aristocrat, Rita kept her mouth shut and scowled. As the daughter of said good-for-nothing aristocrat, I let out a heavy sigh. Classes officially began starting today. It seems the basic schedule was lectures during the day and practical lessons in the afternoon. I was, of course, a total loner in the classroom. No one wanted to get on the prince's bad side by interacting with me. As a result, everyone avoided eye contact. This could actually make things easier for me. Spending 3 years as decor doesn't sound too bad. As I sat at my desk quietly, I began to listen in on all the gossip going on around me. Thanks to the sensory enhancement gained through leveling up, I was able to make out all the whispers in the classroom without any trouble. According to the other students, I was a carefree airhead who had convinced myself that I was amazing based on nothing. Why stop at the academy? Maybe I should just blow up the entire royal capital to prove I'm level 99. Right before class began, Miss Heroine entered the classroom with her trio of love interests, the 4 of them having a friendly chat together. So light magic can heal wounds too? You're impressive, Alicia, William praised. Oswald was impressed. It's an element not even I can use. So, do you think you'll be able to do well at the academy? To be honest, I'm a little worried, being a commoner and all, she replied anxiously. If you ever need anything, just let us know. We promise to help you, Edwin encouraged earnestly. Isn't it too soon for them to have fallen for her? They shouldn't have even spoken to each other at this point in the game. I wonder if things are straying away from the story because of me. The main character's name was Alicia Einlight. The game allowed the player to change her name, but Alicia was the default. Adorned with pink hair, she was your typical protagonist. Adorned with pink hair, she was your typical protagonist, defined by her optimistic and cheery personality. She was accepted into the academy despite being a commoner due to the fact that light magic users were extremely rare. Light magic was so valued because it was the only weakness of the dark element, making it capable of being a secret weapon against the Demon Lord. I would have liked to have kept my distance from her, but just like the love interests, that probably wasn't going to happen. Why? Well, in the short moment that we made eye contact, Alicia glared at me as if I'd murdered her family. On the first day, afternoon classes started with swordsmanship. Although most of the male students were participating, there were only a handful of female students who chose to get involved, including me. Most of them had opted to watch instead. Alright, we'll be taking turns and doing battle simulations to check everyone's skills. First up will be you, level 99. Jeering laughter erupted from the surrounding students. Unfortunately for me, the teacher leading the swordsmanship lessons was the same teacher that had accosted me at the entrance ceremony. First William and now this guy. Do all swordsmen have short fuses? I will be your partner. William stepped forward, which was followed by a shrill outburst of cheers from the other female students. We were to use wooden swords for the simulation, so I randomly picked a sword out of the pile and stepped into the center of the training area. William picked what looked to be the longest and thickest wooden sword. It seemed fitting since he wielded a longsword that was about the length of himself in the game. I mainly used magic when hunting monsters, but my physical strength was still on par with my magic. The last time I was caught off guard and a monster had gotten close to me, I kicked it away without thinking. And that was all, and all that was left was a pile of dust with no resemblance to the monster it once was. Okay, how am I gonna hold back? Last chance to back down. I ignored his warning and took the pre-match bow. I'll look forward to our battle. William sucked his teeth in disdain. Don't say I didn't warn you. Jeez, back off. I'm busy thinking about how I'm going to not kill you. Whether you live or die depends on how careful I am. All right, raise your swords, instructed the teacher. At that moment, I realized I had no idea how to properly hold a sword. In fact, it was my first time picking one up. I was able to handle most enemies with my magic, and if needed, my bare hands, so there hadn't been an opportunity to use one until now. William looked confused as I continued to stand there without raising my sword. Hey, hurry up already. Or is this your way of saying you want to forfeit? I'm sorry, it's just that this is my first time using a sword. Let's just begin. The students watching didn't even try to hide their roars of laughter, with shouts of abuse sprinkled in here and there. William was visibly irate, his face twisted in anger. How long are you going to keep making a fool out of me? I'm not going to hold back just because you're a girl, so expect this to end with a broken bone or two. Without waiting for the starting signal, William charged at me. He was probably fast to the average person, but with my reaction time, it wasn't a problem. As William made his way toward me, I continued to think about how I could get through the lesson without hurting him. It only took a second for him to be right in front of me with his sword raised and ready to strike, but I was ready. The moment before the wooden sword swung down, I swiftly ducked to the side and positioned my wooden sword by his feet. He stumbled as the swing only struck air before William's foot got caught on my sword, forcing him to fall to the ground face first. Sorry about that. I didn't expect you to tumble so magnificently. Hey, what up, Bez? Thanks for the hydrate and the posture check. Let me go ahead and do those now. So allow me to hydrate and again, posture. I think I'm gonna have to I will probably have to refill my water soon. It might not make it to the next ad break, but okay. Everyone fell silent, confused at what had just happened. I turned to the teacher and spoke. Is that it, or should I continue? I vigorously spun the wooden sword in my hand while waiting for an answer, which created a gust of wind in the training area. Don't mind me. Good to see you, dude. The teacher finally came to his senses and declared, "The winner is Yumia Ladolkness." William jumped back up from his fall and objected. "No, not yet. I was just caught off guard, pretending to be an amateur. You're a coward through and through." It's hard to take you seriously when you got blood dripping down your face. Grah! William let out a battle cry and charged at me once more. He probably wouldn't let it go if I just dodged again. I swung my sword to match his attack, and they collided. The crash caused the swords to resonate with an unrecognizable boom from the wood, and sent William flying backward. These wooden swords are surprisingly tough. Wait, that's not important right now. Is William okay? If something were to happen to him, would it be considered an accident? Alright, if anything happens, I'll just hold the teacher responsible since they were the supervisor. As I contemplated my liability, the training area was filled with screams like he was dead. I hurried over to check on William, only to find him unconscious, probably from hitting his head. His breathing was stable, so I was most likely in the clear. At worst, he was maybe a little less intelligent. Oh, should I carry him to the nurse's office? I held William up by his collar, which caused the teacher to panic. No, that's fine. I'll take him, so just hand him over, all right? What is this, a hostage negotiation? Though I was a bit offended, I released William to the teacher. I'll be taking William to the nurse's office. Everyone, practice your swings on your own until I return. Do not, under any circumstances, have any matches. With that, the teacher ran out of the training area. Since I was new to swords and had no idea how to practice my swings, I decided to just copy the others. Upon looking around for someone to show me what to do, I realized that no one was moving. Everyone who made eye contact with me let out a small gasp, and the female students who came to watch were gone. There's no need to be that scared. I made sure I held back. The fact that William wasn't ground meat was proof of that. With nothing else I could do, I attempted to practice some sort of swing, making motions based on what I thought was close enough. The pass classed by like that, and the teacher didn't return until the end of the lesson. So, by the way, welcome everybody coming in. My name is Kriseru, and this is not my usual model, just to let you all know. I keep noticing, the viewer numbers keep kind of fluctuating, and a bunch of people come in, and then they suddenly bail. I'm currently testing a 3D tracking program that basically uses a webcam to track and adapt to like a 3D model and stuff. My 3D model isn't ready yet. It's still a work in progress. I tested it and it was kind of buggy, so I decided to test it today using the default model, which is basically a default Viroid model. But since there's hand tracking and stuff like that, I figured, why not? Because, I can do all kinds of whatever. Which, that probably didn't sound right, but the whole fact that I could actually go ahead and have hand movements with just a webcam, no leap motion, no nothing, no other tracking stuff required, pretty impressive. New haircut, yes. Definitely a new haircut. Dye job, whatever else. The cardigan is new. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I get the feeling that people are kind of coming in going, oh, hey, cute anime girl. And then they suddenly hear, welcome. And they're like, what the crap? And they're suddenly bailing. But anyway, we are doing reading ASMR, and I am currently reading Villainess level 99. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the demon lord. This actually just got an anime that just finished recently, so I think it's the winter season. For the record, the anime only covers volume 1, and there are, I don't know exactly how many volumes there are in Japanese, but right now J-Novel is actually working on translating volume 5. So there's at least 5 volumes in the series. So if you like the anime, and if you haven't seen the anime, I recommend giving it a look. If you like the anime and you want to know more, and you like reading, I highly recommend giving the light novels a try. I'm not aware of there being a manga for the series yet. There may or may not be, and apparently 180 was on here earlier, and there are audiobooks for the entire series that are already on YouTube. So I am not going to wind up reading the entire book or the entire series because copyright, and I don't have direct permission, so I'm only reading the first part that's kind of published on the free account for J-Novel. So think of it as a preview version or a preview of the story. So, I'm currently in the middle of chapter 1 in part 1. So, the next class was magic. The magic training area was lined with scarecrows dressed in metal armor with roofing only over the targets, similar to an archery range. The teacher arrived right on time and took a look around at the students before saying, "Let's begin with everyone showing me their magic skills. All you must do is hit the target with at least one element." Similar to the swordsmanship class, we were to take turns performing magic in order to assess each student's skill level. There were 4 main elements: fire, air, water, and earth. There were very few people who could use light or dark magic. One by one, the students stepped forward to perform their magic, but surprisingly, there were only a few students who passed. For most, their magic went flying in unintended directions or didn't reach the target. Even those who were able to hit the target could only manage to do so with up to 2 elements. The targets don't seem like they're taking damage at all. I wonder if their magic just isn't potent enough. Alicia missed a target on her turn, but people exclaimed in awe because she used very rare light magic. Oswald was able to use all 4 of the main elements to hit the target each time. Though his magic looked more potent than others, the target still wouldn't budge. That target must be really sturdy. Wonderful. I expected nothing less of you, Oswald. It's no wonder you're hailed as a magical genius, the teacher enthused. It's only natural to do this much. Oswald then turned to me. It seems that she's the only person who hasn't shown her magic yet. I wonder what kind of amazing magic she'll perform for us. He pushed up his glasses, looking at me mockingly. Oh, right. He didn't participate in the swordsmanship lesson. I guess he doesn't know that I sent William flying. As I stepped forward, the students who had participated in the swordsmanship class stepped back in anticipation of something happening. There's no need to be so cautious. The truth was, I couldn't properly use any of the 4 main elements. At most, I could produce a flame as strong as a lighter, or create a gentle breeze. Yes, I was the woman who allocated all her skill points to her muscles and dark magic. I was wondering, would it be alright to destroy the target? I wanted to know if it was okay to destroy such sturdy school equipment. But Oswald answered in place of the teacher. The armor on that scarecrow has gone through a special treatment. Besides, how could you destroy something that even I couldn't? If you're going to speak, could you at least answer my question? I ignored him and turned my attention to the teacher. Only the court mages are strong enough to destroy them, but if you think you can do it, go ahead. With the teacher's approval, I cast my magic. Alright then. Dark flame. A pea-sized black flame appeared from the tip of my finger and shot straight out toward the target. What was that? I was curious as to what you would show us, but I didn't think it would be a pop gun. On the other hand, the teacher seemed to have noticed that I used dark magic and was wide-eyed with amazement. The pea-sized flame finally landed and immediately upon contact set the entire target ablaze. Now engulfed in flames, the armor began to melt into a viscous mess. Dark Flame was a spell that I used often. Though it produces no heat, just like its name suggests, it's magic that looks like fire, even though the way it melts stone and metal looks more like acid than a fire. Using it on a monster led to a grotesque result. The scarecrow, once protected by the armor, had completely dissolved, and the black flame dissipated. The training area fell silent for a few moments, but then someone spoke up. "Is that dark magic?" they muttered. Yes, it is, I replied without hesitation. It seems to be the only element I'm any good at. Brilliant work, Lady Yumiella. Oh, there have even been some court mages who are dark magic users, so try not to be biased towards it, the teacher explained with a slight stutter. I hadn't realized that dark magic had such a negative connotation. Come to think of it, most villains in picture books had black hair and were dark magic users. Am I a villain? Oh, right. I'm the villainous and hidden boss, duh. Oswald, who had been quiet until now, began to mutter under his breath. It's impossible. Something's not right. I'm the genius when it comes to magic. I think it's just the differences in levels, not ability. I won't accept this. You got that? His dissatisfaction culminated in a scream before he fled the training area. How out of character. What happened to being the cool glasses guy? As I stood there, put off by Oswald's behavior, Prince Edwin appeared with the headmaster, just barely missing his friend. Yumiella Dulkness, the paperwork for your expulsion has been completed. You aren't fit for the Royal Academy. Prince Edwin had apparently been making preparations for my expulsion. So that's why I hadn't seen him this morning. What a busy day you've had, Your Highness. My expulsion? While I reassessed my plans moving forward, the headmaster chimed in. Someone who would lie to a member of the royal family is not fit for the academy, nor are they fit to be an aristocrat in Velsheim. If you are expelled, it will be quite difficult to remain at your current standing. Maybe a vacation would do you some good. Perhaps foreigners would treat you better, Prince Edwin chimed in. Is he implying that I should be exiled to a different kingdom? Just then, the magic teacher spoke up in a panic. Your Highness, Headmaster, please hear me out. She's able to use the very rare dark magic and was able to destroy a target that even a court mage would struggle with. She may be telling the truth about being level 99. I believe that expelling her would be a loss for this kingdom. But a court mage could destroy it? Then that isn't proof of her being level 99. His Highness turned to address me. If you want to stay enrolled, you'll have to convince me. It seemed that Prince Edwin was insistent on getting me expelled. Get this Voldemort lady out of here. Wouldn't it be a problem if a member of the royal family were to hand someone as strong as a court mage over to another kingdom, Your Highness? I wonder which would be better, going into exile and being harbored by another kingdom, or hiding my identity and living as a commoner. While I weighed the pros and cons of each, the magic teacher begged me to prove my innocence. Lady Yumiella, that magic that you performed earlier wasn't your full strength, was it? Please, show us what you can do at full power. He seemed ready to prostrate himself if necessary. Perhaps it was his loyalty to his kingdom that drove him to such desperation, but I couldn't turn down someone pleading so earnestly. Very well. I will launch a spell into the sky. I turned to face the prince. Your Highness, would it be alright if I used my magic? Do as you wish. It doesn't matter to me. Are you really sure about that? Stop talking and get on with it. The thing is, if something were to happen, I would need someone to take responsibility. I don't want to be liable, you know? Why would something happen when you're aiming for the sky? Fine, I'll take responsibility. Alright, gonna hold you to that, Your Highness. Pushing responsibility onto the prince is my best option, considering what's about to happen. In that case, let us move to an area with no roof. I left the training area, and the prince, the headmaster, and the magic teacher followed suit, with the other students anxiously trailing along. Though I said I would showcase my full power, I wasn't planning on actually going all out. I had refrained from using my full magical powers since an incident in the past where I left a forest with a crater, as I had most definitely grown since then. My current full strength was beyond even my own imagination. Regardless, I decided to use the strongest dark magic spell, a spell that could only be used by the Demon Lord and myself in the game. Black Hole. In the blink of an eye, the Royal Academy was enveloped in darkness. If someone were looking in from far away, it would have looked like a black orb appeared above the Academy. It was large enough to be spotted from anywhere in the royal capital. All the sunlight was completely obstructed at the Academy, making all the surroundings as dark as night. However, it only lasted for a moment before the black orb shrank before everyone's eyes. Once it had disappeared, it was quickly followed by a strong gust of wind blowing up toward the air. Black Hole was a spell that unconditionally obliterated any matter within its range. In other words, the air above the Academy had been eradicated in an instant. This caused the atmosphere in the area to become a vacuum and pull in all the surrounding air. Once the violent winds had subsided, I did my best to put on a kind face and address the prince. "How was that, Your Highness? Was it enough to prove that I'm level 99? "Ah!" was all he managed. Though he was scared stiff, Prince Edwin was desperately trying to run away from me. Goodness, there's no need to be so scared. The day after I made a black hole appear above the Academy, I was called to the royal palace to have an audience with His Majesty the King. Although the orb floating in the air yesterday had quickly disappeared, many people had witnessed it, causing a bit of a stir in the royal capital. Knights were dispatched to the Academy to investigate the situation. Naturally, I was questioned, but, of course, I made sure to emphasize that Prince Edwin was responsible for the entire situation. Along with the prince and the headmaster, other Academy teachers and students who watched it happen were questioned as well. When I was called to the royal palace, I learned that the Academy uniform was on the same level as a military uniform, and I was able to appear as is for my audience with the king. Not only is it comfortable, but I can wear it around almost anywhere. This is great. From now on, I'm always going to be in uniform. The heavy doors to the audience chamber opened, and the knight who had guided me here prompted me to enter. The room was adorned with lavish furnishings on a red carpet, with a handsome, mature-looking man seated in the back. It was the king himself, and the queen was seated next to him. They were surrounded by people who looked to be prominent figures in this kingdom. I was knowledgeable about the principal aristocrats, but couldn't put any names to the faces in front of me. Upon seeing me, they began to whisper amongst themselves. My hair, again, was getting old. However, the king and queen's expressions were free of that sort of disgust. Perhaps they were just good at hiding how they felt, but for now, it was reassuring. I stepped forward to the center of the audience chamber and bowed to the king and queen. Yumiela Doknus, raise your head, His Majesty called out. He refrained from continuing until I lifted my head up. I am aware of what happened at the Academy. It seems that my son and the teachers of the Academy behaved rudely. You have my apologies, Lady Yumiela. Though it was just a small bow from the king, the audience hall echoed with gasps of shock, and I was just as surprised to be receiving an apology from the king himself. It's all right. There's no need for you to apologize, Your Majesty. I was the one who caused trouble for everyone by conducting myself abnormally, and for that, I sincerely apologize. The king responded to my panicked apology in a kind voice. Lady Umiela, please raise your head. There are a variety of methods that could have been used to confirm your level, such as a physical assessment or a simple display of magic. I find it unreasonable that they made accusations based on their one-sided assumptions. However, it is also true that many would find it hard to believe that a petite young lady such as yourself was level 99. Some of my vassals are suspicious of your level as well, which is why I would like for Adolf to decide the truth. A decision from him should satisfy everyone. As His Majesty spoke, a strapping man who appeared to be around the same age as the king stepped forward. So you're Adolf, commander of the Knight's Order. He was considered to be the strongest knight in the entire kingdom. If I remember correctly, he was around level 60. To put that into perspective, the recommended level to take on the Demon Lord was around 60 or 70. He was definitely strong. Adolf the Truthful. In honor of your attainment of the highest level of human achievement, I will deliver a strike with my full strength. Adolf stood before me and unsheathed his sword, immediately swinging it sideways towards my throat. Huh? We're starting already? Okay, let's see here. Ads are actually going to start up in about 30 seconds or so, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pause because I need to refill my water real quick. So I will be back in a moment. I used to run ads like once an hour for 3 minutes, but I guess Twitch changed it up, so now the automated thing is having me do ads like every half hour, so I'll be back shortly. But the ads are only 1 minute and 30, so it'll be a short break, but I will be right back. And we are back. Alright. Huh? We're starting already? I wasn't sure if it was appropriate for me to counterattack, but it felt wrong to use magic without permission in front of the king. The king didn't say I should fight, but he also didn't tell me to block the attack. I guess I should dodge it. All my thoughts took place within a split second, allowing me to evade the attack with a curtsy. The sword had barely missed the top of my head. I raised my head to prepare for the next attack, but Commander Adolf had already sheathed his blade, looking slightly disappointed. Not even members of the Knight's Order can handle that strike, he confessed. On top of that, it appears that you even had time to think about how you would dodge the attack. There is no doubt that you are level 99. It was only after Commander Adolf finished speaking that the others realized that he had even swung his sword, once again filling the chamber with whispers. "I'm sorry about that, Lady Umiela," Adolf apologized. He spoke quietly, so only I could hear. "As a knight, I'm ashamed to have surprised you with an attack like that, but I can't go against His Majesty's orders." Ah, so the king had instructed him to do that in advance. "I apologize for testing you so suddenly, Lady Umiela. I'm glad that you weren't harmed." Once Commander Adolf had returned to his position next to the king, His Majesty asked, "Would you please show us some magic as well? You are free to use any small-scale magic right here." "Yes, I'll go ahead then." I decided to cast Shadowlance in an effort to use a spell that presented the least amount of danger for everyone in the room. Slowly, several black lances arose from my shadow, causing a commotion. Dark magic. How interesting. "Chief Court Mage, is there anything dangerous about the element of darkness?" An elderly man dressed in robes spoke up to answer the king's question. "Darkness is merely an element, but just as the four main elements in the light element are. It is weak to light, but strong against water, earth, air, and fire, making it a very powerful element. It is up to the user to decide how to use it. Dark magic is used by high-ranking monsters. Are you sure it's not something evil? There are also monsters that wield the other four main elements. Though I cannot confirm if it is true, there are written records of monsters using the light element as well. Given that it is an element with very few users, there were probably many people whose imaginations ran wild, leading them to believe it is a negative path." I see. You're saying that people tend to fear uncommon things that they don't understand. It may be that black hair is loathed for a similar reason. The king and the chief mage spoke as if they were making sure their conversations was heard by everyone. This Q&A session was probably done for my sake. Seeing that dark magic and black hair seemed to have the worst reputation, I was grateful for their consideration. The king moved his gaze back to me. Lady Umiela, you have reached a height that perhaps no man ever has. Well done. I'd like to hear about your process of how you reached that point." He wants to know how I level grinded. It's only natural for him to be curious, given that this is a matter of national strength. I don't think I'll be of much help since I didn't do anything particularly special, but there's no harm in telling him the truth. There wasn't anything particularly special about what I did. I merely kept taking down monsters. I was luckily able to use some magic at level 1. You must have had a mentor, no? I did not. I am self-taught. I started with the monsters in the forest on our estate, and once I got comfortable, I continued my training in a dungeon. I was unaware that there was a dungeon in the Darkness estate, His Majesty mused. Yes, we have a dungeon nearby. It's not very popular because it's disadvantageous for the four main elements due to the considerable number of dark-type monsters that appear. Come to think of it, I've never seen anyone else in that dungeon. In the game, it's actually a bonus stage for the light-type main character. So, you had no mentor. Does that mean you had no battle training? That is correct. I thought I could get stronger by focusing on defeating monsters and increasing my level. Oh, I see. The king seemed disturbed by my response. Apparently, the standard procedure in this kingdom was to have plenty of training before taking on a monster. Did no one in your household try to stop you from doing something so dangerous? This is a bit embarrassing to admit, but the truth is, I was sneaking out to train. No one noticed as long as I was home on the days that the tutors came by. Your parents didn't... Oh, I'm sorry. You can disregard that. The king must have remembered that my parents never left the royal capital, as his expression had turned to one of pity. Don't feel bad, Your Majesty. It was honestly a pretty fun and fulfilling childhood. I should probably change the subject, though. I don't think there was anything else I did. Oh, wait, yes. I had an amulet of growth with me. You didn't carry an amulet of protection? Amulets were a type of equipable item with various effects. The amulet of growth was an item that doubled your experience points. In the game, it was only available for purchase after defeating the Demon Lord, but in this world, it was just another item at the shops. The amulet of protection could block one fatal strike. It wasn't used much in the game, but it was probably very useful as a real-world item. Its price in the shops reflected that as well, as it was the only expensive item by a large margin. The only drawback was that amulets seemed to cancel each other out because carrying more than one negated their effects. I also used a monster summoning flute. I would play it as loud as I could in the forest and dungeon. The monster summoning flute was an item that would force an encounter with monsters. It was an extremely helpful item since I couldn't just spawn enemies by walking around like in the game. Adolf, would you be able to do the same? I could not part with my amulet of protection, nor could I do something so frightening as playing a monster summoning flute while alone, he answered seriously. The king and Commander Adolf stared at me as if I were deranged. All I did was try to level grind efficiently. This feels like an overreaction. I did have some near-death experiences, though. The king cleared his throat and spoke in a rigid manner. Yumi Holodokness, I hope you will employ your strength as this kingdom's sword. Yes, Your Majesty, I added, nodding. As one of your vassals, I intend to be the Kingdom of Valshine's shield, I continued, having swapped the phrases Kingdom's Sword for Kingdom's Shield nonchalantly. Very well. You shall utilize your strength in the event of a national emergency. I was relieved to see that my intentions were understood and agreed to by the king. However, my relief was short-lived as my audience with the king didn't seem to be over. His Majesty seemed to be sizing me up, his gaze still piercing. Well then, I would like to reward you for your unprecedented achievements. Feel free to speak honestly about your desires. We can arrange for you to have a title, an estate, or even a national treasure. Welcoming you into the royal family wouldn't be out of the question either. The audience chamber buzzed with shock at the king's generous words. This must be a test. The king wants to know whether I'm seeking wealth, honor, or even the prince's hand in marriage. Unfortunately, Your Highness, I don't want any of those things. I am very fortunate and grateful for this unexpected gift. As for my desires, I wish to lead a peaceful life. If there is peace in the kingdom and my surroundings, and enough food, clothing, and shelter for all, there would be nothing else I could want for. I see. Then I shall vow to strive for your peace. I must say, you are quite non-acquisitive. If you ever desire anything else, let me know, and I shall arrange what I can. The king spoke as if he was satisfied with my answer, but there was also a hint of displeasure. I figured that he was bothered by the fact that he couldn't prepare chains to shackle me to this kingdom. You're right to be worried. If I ever get sick of this place, I'm out of here. Thus ended my time with His Majesty, and I exited the audience chamber. Glad that's over. It was quite nerve-wracking. I was glad to find that the king was someone who could be reasoned with. I had even anticipated being unfairly assigned to the military and forced to participate in war. If it had come to that, I would have done everything I could to escape. I followed the knight who had guided me here, excited to finally return to my dorm. Wait, this isn't the way we came. The knight continued to guide me further into the depths of the palace. We seem to be going in a different direction than the exit. Yes, you've been invited to have tea with Her Majesty, Lady Yumiella. Darn, looks like my time in the palace isn't over yet. I was brought to the royal family's personal quarters deep in the palace, and taken into a room where the queen most likely awaited me. The room had a relaxed feeling to its design, and inside waited the queen and a maid, with tea already prepared. Thank you for coming, Lady Yumiella. I would have loved for His Majesty to join us, but he is a very busy man. The queen had a calm and mature-like quality to her, yet she maintained an air of youthfulness. My name is Yumiella Dulkness. Thank you very much for inviting me, Your Majesty. This is unofficial business. There's no need to be so polite, the queen said with a soft smile before glancing over at the maid. The maid finished making my tea and left the room. I want you to know that our conversation here won't leave this room, especially since I have some sensitive matters to discuss. What? This is starting to smell like trouble. I just want to go home already. There's no need to be so guarded, sweetie. The king and I both are actually quite fond of you. Your answers during your audience were brilliant. It's a relief to know that someone like you was the one to obtain such a strong power. Thank you? I was surprised at the unexpected glowing review. Lady Yumiella, you consider having power to be a hassle, don't you? Furthermore, you seem to be sharp-witted. If you had been either an ambitious or empty-headed person, the thought gives me chills. Why do you trust me so much? Well, there are many aristocrats who pretend to be non-acquisitive to get close to the royal family. Eventually, I started to be able to tell the difference. You don't want to get involved with the royal family, do you? Unfortunately, the only people I can trust are those who feel that way. There was no way I was going to admit to her face that I didn't want to get involved with the royal family, so I stayed silent. Let's move on to the main topic, the queen continued. Keep in mind, this is information that only the royal family and very few aristocrats are privy to. In 2 years, the Demon Lord will be resurrected. I was shocked to hear the queen state it so plainly, and although I wasn't surprised about the Demon Lord's resurrection, I was surprised at how they had so accurately predicted it. In the game, without any warning, the Demon Lord resurrected as soon as the main character began her 3rd year, which would be 2 years from now. The royal family must have information on the Demon Lord that wasn't revealed in the game. The Demon Lord? Yes, I would like your cooperation in taking down the Demon Lord. The military will have their hands full with holding off the army of monsters, so we need a team of a select few to defeat the Demon Lord. Understood. I will, of course, help the kingdom during this crisis. I had already been planning to take down the Demon Lord myself if necessary, so I accepted immediately. Thank you, Yumiella. There's just one thing. I feel terrible saying this when you would be risking your life, but it wouldn't be good for the kingdom if you were to take down the Demon Lord. It would be inconvenient for the kingdom if I defeated the Demon Lord? I pondered what the queen meant by her statement, and only one answer came to mind. Is that because it would bring to question the king's legitimacy? The kingdom of Valsheim was founded by the hero and saintess who sealed the Demon Lord, and the royal family were their descendants. This fact was the reason the king ruled this kingdom. If someone unrelated to the royal family were to defeat the Demon Lord, this reasoning would falter. I'm impressed. That is correct, she said, her eyebrows raised. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I cheated a little. I only knew that because the prince participated in taking down the Demon Lord in the game. Being the descendant of the hero is merely the official reason, but having a justification itself is important to a king, the queen continued. We plan to send Edwin to defeat the Demon Lord. It would be wonderful if you would join the battle as a saintess. If I were to be worshipped as a saintess who helped defeat the Demon Lord, I would have to marry Prince Edwin. No thank you. Marrying into the royal family sounds exhausting. There's a new student in my same incoming class who uses light magic. I believe she is much more suited to be the saintess rather than a dark magic user like myself. She already seems to be getting along with Prince Edwin at the academy. Miss Heroine, I sacrifice thee. How unfortunate. Though, I did expect you to turn me down. It's all right that you don't want to. You can be honest with me. Oh, and if you don't like Edwin, would you consider marrying Maurice? The queen asked, referring to the first prince. No, I declined without hesitation. I mean, she was the one who said to be honest. There's no need to be so opposed. I won't force you. The last thing we want is to drive you out of the kingdom. However, I do wonder how my sons would react to hearing how clearly opposed you were to the idea of marrying them, the queen laughed. The fact that I so flatly rejected the princes must have amused her. Once her laughter had calmed down, Her Majesty regained her composure and began to speak on a new topic. We can discuss the Demon King in more detail at a later date. The more immediate problem you will face will be the aristocrats trying to persuade you to join their political factions. Unfortunately, the news about you being level 99 has already spread. I believe their maneuvers to draw you in will begin tomorrow. Wouldn't joining your Majesty's faction solve the problem? The King and I are members of the dominant faction, who are also known as moderates or royalists. The problem is that the faction isn't a monolith, so members of the dominant faction would fight over you. Though, we also aren't known as moderates for nothing. There wouldn't be as many issues, and you would probably be able to handle it yourself. The Queen's lecture on the political factions of aristocrats, a topic I lack knowledge about, continued. You must look out for the radicals led by the Duke of Hillrose. They have proposed wars of aggression on other kingdoms. Try to keep your distance from them. You should also be wary of being contacted by agents from other countries. If you are ever given an enticing offer, let me or the king know. I promise you we will arrange something beyond their offers. The thorough and complete support from this kingdom made me fully aware of how I had become a living strategic weapon. I then realized I had no idea what faction the Dalkness family was a part of, so I looked to ask the Queen. Her Majesty looked hesitant but answered, The Dalkness family, or should I say aristocrats that are pseudo-centralists, are radicals. The Duke wishes to grow the radical faction as much as he can, and they want to be a part of the centralists' factions. It is a result of their agendas aligning. To think that we were radicals. My family is probably wrapped around the Duke of Hillrose's thumb. What should I do if my family were to demand that I be adopted by or marry into the Hillrose family? I will issue a royal decree prohibiting you from being transferred from your family registry. Without the ability to be added to another family's registry, it will be impossible for you to be adopted or married against your will. However, there will be people who oppose this, so I'm afraid that I can only keep the decree active until you graduate. Thank you, Your Majesty. That is plenty sufficient. I'll have to do something about my relationship with my family before I graduate. Yumiella, I was wondering, what do you think of your parents? The queen asked as if reading my thoughts. I've never met them, so I couldn't say. It seems that they aren't very good people, so if possible, I would like to cut ties with them. The queen must not have expected me to say I'd never met my parents. She gasped, her face now filled with sadness. I see. If you would like, you could become my... She cut herself off. No, you would probably refuse. In any case, you can think of me as your own mother. If you are ever in need of some attention, please feel free to stop by. The offer was sweet, but as someone whose mental age was over 30, it was a bit of an awkward situation to be in. Thank you. I appreciate the offer, but your kind words are more than enough. Afterward, we discussed my life on the Dolkness estate. As the story of my life progressed, the Queen's expression became increasingly sorrowful. By the time we reached the dungeon arc of my fun level grinding times, tears were streaming down her face. We will be sending one of the King's men to the academy. If you are ever in trouble, please let him know. For some reason, the Queen seemed to feel the need to protect me. As mothers often did for their visiting children, I was sent home with an abundance of treats. So, that was part 1 of Villainess level 99. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the Demon Lord, Volume 1. That was the prelude in Chapter 1. So what'd you guys think? Like I said, there's an anime already out, or that came out over the winter season of this series, and it was pretty fun. And the anime only covers book 1, so there are like 5 volumes that are currently translated into English. So, with volume 5 currently in process, which means that I believe that there are more volumes. I don't know the exact count of the number of total Japanese volumes. So there's plenty of material to go. So if you want to know more about the story beyond the anime, I highly recommend checking out the light novels. Tell me the truth. Is this series going to make me cry? Because I will definitely check it out if it does. I think it's probably more bound to make you laugh than cry. Maybe cringe a little every now and then. It kind of depends on how you like the tropes in the story. Also, for everybody kind of popping in and kind of checking everything out, welcome. Hello, my name is Chris Heru. Do not be fooled by the avatar. The temporary avatar is just me testing the 3D software. My actual 3D model is still work in progress. I'm just using the default model while I'm testing out the software to see how well it's actually working. So, don't mind me. This is not another one of those, oh hey, cute anime girl, why is there a guy's voice? What the hell? Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Forget about it, it's nothing special. But yeah, the book is actually, it's a pretty fun read. I'll be honest, I am not that big into the dense protagonist trope, you know, the ones that can't read the room and are just kind of... So her trope is basically she's not exactly dense, right? She's clearly very, very intelligent. The thing is, because she's kind of because she's a gamer and a level grinding junkie, she gets very passionate about that, and that's the point where she gets dense and just can't read the room when it comes to level grinding in particular, you know. But her common trope is like, she is the typical the typical emotionless strong female type character. So like I said, it's a fun series and everything else. I highly recommend giving it a read. Now, I'm not going to be reading the whole thing tonight because, copyright. I'm basically reading like the preview parts. So, the site that actually has the actual license to distribute the novels that I'm reading tonight, J Novel Club. This isn't like a sponsored stream or anything, by the way. I just happen to use their service to read their books, to read the light novels. But when you have a free account, they actually have like the first part of the series, which more or less covers like either the prologue and or part of chapter 1 or whatever. So I'm just kind of going through and reading the previews. So I'm gonna go through a couple of books tonight. So it'll just give you an ability to kind of check out and listen to a few different stories that maybe you hadn't heard of before. So if you get interested, go check out the books or the manga, or if there's an anime. So I guess we have an ad starting up soon, which is a perfect time for me to go ahead and switch the graphics and get ready for and prep the next book to be read. So I'm going to go ahead and get those changes up. I'm going to change the title, the cover image, and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and do that while this ad break runs. Let's see here. So the next book. Think you might have mentioned it before, but is this isekai to otome game or just RPG-ish? Well, okay, see, the thing about otome games, usually it's not, okay, so the otome games aren't just they're not just a kind of like a visual novel kind of deal. The otome games have that dating sim component, so it is like that part of a visual novel, but then it also has like an RPG sub game in it, right? And that's where like the whole RPG where you can take the characters in the actual storyline and you can basically level them up and put them through fighting monsters, going through dungeons and everything. So it's little column A, little column B. And it's more of the otome games are more JRPG with visual novel elements. So, hey Vin, how you doing? Congratulations on redeeming second. So, and welcome for everybody kind of coming in. I am Krisaru, and we are reading different stories tonight, so giving you a sample of previews from a variety of different light novels. So the next book I'm going to be reading, A Livid Lady's Guide to Getting Even, How I Crushed My Homeland with My Mighty Grimoires. Give me a moment while I change the title, the graphics, and everything else. I can't believe that you cannot copy and paste into OBS. That friggin' blows. So I actually have to go ahead and type it. And it still cracks me up that I'm actually getting people. They're kind of popping in. They are. Because I might actually have to have this as a. I was talking to 180, and we were joking. You know, we were talking about like different redeems. Like I'm gonna have like a redeem on my ghost model. You know, a booba redeem that basically just like, you know, plants a rack, inflates the rack on my ghost model. And we were talking about I'm gonna have to have another redeem that's basically just switches out so that I body swap it and, like, you know, wind up swapping to like a female model. And I'll probably just, like I said, I'll use maybe a random like default female Vroid model and just kind of switch between those and stuff for like a limited time during the redeem. Because I gotta admit, it's kind of cracking me up. I guess people are where whatever category, like, you know, they see me and stuff. They see, oh hey, cute anime girl and stuff. They kind of pop in and then they hear, "Welcome, how you doing?" It probably just throws them all off. You know, they're like, "Oh my god, what the hell is this? Another dude pretending to be a girl?" No, I'm not. For the record, I'm actually just testing the 3D tracking software. I'm testing the 3D webcam tracking software with, like, you know, the default model for now, because my current 3D model, I was testing it and found that it has some, it has a few flaws. It's basically still a work in progress. So I'm actually just testing the software using the default model while I get my main model ready. Yeah, sorry, I just smoked 2 packs. Anyway, how you doing, honey? Yeah, no. I can't even do like a Harvey Weinstein type voice. Like, I just want to be loved. Yeah, no, I can't do that. I don't really have the chain smoker voice. Well, I don't know. Maybe by the end of the night, I'll sound a little more fried. It's hard to tell. Okay, let me change the image here real quick for the book cover. So let's see, Livid Lady, where are you? Okay. Old diner waitress, but Harvey works too. See, when I think of the diner waitresses, I think of Miss Lala. She's awesome. If you guys have never actually seen her, yeah, I would definitely go check out Miss Lala. She basically, her VTube character, she basically runs a 50s diner in New York, which is a lot of fun. She's awesome. Totally recommend it, checking her out. Anyway, so let's see here. Let me pull up a Livid Lady's Guide to Getting Even. So this one is A Livid Lady's Guide to Getting Even, How I Crushed My Homeland with My Mighty Grimoires. I gotta wonder how long it's gonna be before this one gets an actual anime release, an anime adaptation. It's a pretty interesting read. Now this is one where I actually read the first volume of the manga as it came out, and then I want, you know, because, you know, the manga releases take so long, I switched over to reading the novel because I really wanted to know what happened next. Yeah, yeah, right? You just looking at a title and know it's going to be greenlit for an anime. I have a pretty good feeling that this is going to wind up getting one. It's always kind of nice when I see, like, oh hey, this is a popular title or whatever, like, oh hey, it's got an anime adaptation now. A lot of the books that I've actually read ended up getting anime adaptations, particularly like, the last few seasons. And that's a good point. Maybe next week I'll read my insta kill ability is overpowered. I'll read that one next week. All right. Prologue. I knew I sang high praise of myself, but I must admit, I was outstanding. As the daughter of a duke, I stood at the top of the nobility. I had long silver hair that glimmered in the sunlight, deep ocean blue eyes, and unblemished skin as fair as snow. If you asked 100 people to assess my appearance, they'd all give the same answer. I'm beautiful. I was educated and always shown great talent in academics, etiquette, martial arts, and magic. Most people would agree that the gods had blessed me. As far as I can remember, I had been engaged to the crown prince and was to become the future queen. Never did I have qualms about my situation. Even if I had not chosen this path, I was aware of my duty as a noble lady to dedicate my life to the well-being and happiness of my people. Or at least, that's what I thought until that fateful day. Elizabeth, I cannot keep forgiving your wicked deeds. A man's voice suddenly interrupted the refined music played by the orchestra of the royal family and echoed in the dance hall. The music and idle conversation stopped at once. All heads in the formerly perfectly peaceful hall turned to stare at the man who'd spoken and me, Elizabeth Layston. Those gazes were unpleasant, but I deliberately did not let my feelings show. I remained calm and addressed the man who had blown up at me out of the blue, my fiancé and the crown prince of the kingdom of Haldoria, His Highness Freed. Prince Freed, I started. We're welcoming important guests to celebrate the founding of our kingdom tonight. I'd appreciate it if you could please leave the jokes for another time. Today was the anniversary of the occasion I'd mentioned, and we had invited eminent nobles and officials from neighboring countries. Under normal circumstances, His Majesty the King should have hosted this event, but he'd left the country to attend a meeting regarding a monster attack that had occurred a couple of months ago. The Crown Prince had stepped in as his proxy and, for some reason, deemed tonight to be the perfect moment to condemn me publicly. His behavior was so disgraceful I couldn't even begin to describe it, but could refer to it as scandalous. Regardless of Prince Freed, Regardless of what Prince Freed hoped to achieve by airing his dirty laundry aloud, I had to resolve this matter quietly. Come now, let's forget about this, I said with a smile, hoping to ease the atmosphere. I extended my hand towards the prince. Would you care to dance? But the one who took my hand instead was Robert Artie, the son of the Knight Commander. I tried to complain, but Robert wouldn't allow me to finish my sentence. He twisted my arm and brought it behind my back, forcing me to kneel. Then I let out a surprised groan. Although I could have resisted, I didn't want to create a greater commotion. That would be unwise considering the circumstances. Prince Freed didn't seem to agree. Elizabeth, I know what you did to Sylvie, he declared passionately and loudly, as if he were an actor on stage. You've gone too far this time. My eyes instantly went to the young lady standing behind him. A group of young noblemen who seemed eager to protect her surrounded her. Her name was Sylvia Lockett, and she was Baron Lockett's illegitimate child that he recently took in. Sylvie was a year younger than the prince and me. Even though she wasn't very popular with the ladies, many gentlemen had taken a liking to her outspoken nature. They considered her candid behavior a breath of fresh air in the constraints of high society. Prince Fried and Robert fell for her charm too. Who the prince took as a second wife was none of my business, and I did not mind if he surrounded himself with an army of mistresses. After all, siring as many heirs as possible was his duty as a future king. However, there was a proper way to go about these things. Order was important since the conflict between his heirs could lead to a war if they handled things poorly. It was also crucial that a future king found suitable, cultured ladies. I'd done my best to convey that to Sylvia, advising her several times not to mingle with other men if she was to have a relationship with His Highness. Considering the swarm of men around her, she hadn't heeded my warnings. "What do you mean by this time?" I asked. "I don't recall doing anything worth this treatment." Robert still held me down, as I hoped to sort this out so he'd unhand me. But my words only seemed to irritate the prince even more. "How dare you ask what I mean? You let your ugly jealousy take over and pushed Sylvie down a flight of stairs," he roared. I paused for a few seconds, confused, before answering. "Please calm down, Your Highness. I've never—" "Shut up. Sylvie told me everything. She's far too nice, so she keeps covering for you, but I won't let you bully her anymore. Guards, take her to jail." The guards approached me to follow the prince's command, yet they did not touch me. I could see the confusion on their faces. "What are you doing? Drag her away, now!" But, mumbled the guard who looked at the prince, then at me. I understood his reaction. While the prince spent his days idling away, I helped the king and my father with their work and used most of my time cleaning up the prince's messes. It was clear who the guards saw more often and preferred. Still, it would have been unwise to drag this out in front of so many prying eyes. "It's all right," I said. "Huh?" answered the guard. You can't disobey a royal command, can you? Come on, let us go." Yes, I apologize, my lady." Robert let go of me, and the guard took my arm before leading me to the dungeon. As we stepped out of the dance hall, I heard Prince Fried proclaim the end of our engagement and said he'd take Lady Sylvia as his fiancée instead. I couldn't believe he pulled this in the middle of a party. How did he intend to deal with the consequences of his actions? "Forgive me for bringing you to such a terrible place, Lady Elizabeth," said the guard. "There's no need to fret. You're only following the prince's orders," I said. "Could you tell me if they informed the king and my father? I'm sure they'll fix this mess upon their return." I bid the guard farewell and sat on the moldy wooden chair that decorated my cell in the humid and smelly dungeon. Afterward, I sighed and said, "To think this happened at a time when no one was here to talk back to Prince Fried. No, I suppose he chose this moment on purpose." High society was cruel. Once rumors started spreading, your reputation would suffer because it didn't matter whether they were true. If the prince wanted to remove me from the picture entirely, he definitely picked a good time. Well, I'm sure His Majesty and my father will rush home as soon as they hear of it. I had an anti-magic collar put around my neck. In the days of the Old Kingdom, they used such restraints on criminals to prevent them from using magic. This long-lost practice had recently resurfaced in old records. The Crown Prince ordered that they use one on me because of my strong magic. "Good grief," I said, tapping on my collar. I let out a deep sigh. What? A man roared. The room he was sitting in had lavish decorations, as did the rest of the sumptuous residence he and his delegation occupied for the international conference. Is this true? He questioned. Yes, the messenger answered sheepishly. Bulat Haldoria, king of the kingdom of Haldoria, gnashed his teeth in anger and frustration. Despite his age, he was still an imposing and muscular man. The king, who used to be known as the fearsome god of thunder on the battlefield, wore his countless battle scars as decorations. Faced with the rage of such a formidable man, the messenger shook with fear. He could not help that his teeth chattered. "Please calm down, your majesty," said the man sitting beside the king. "You're right," said Bulat, looking at the messenger. "My anger got the best of me, and I am sorry. Thank you for delivering this message to me. Go rest." "Yes, your majesty." The messenger scrambled out of the room. "That idiot just won't stop causing trouble," the king lamented. "I agree that His Highness the Prince is a bit of a handful," said the companion with a sour face. The man in his prime who sat next to the king was Duke Siegliston, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Haldoria. While the men were away to attend an international conference, the Crown Prince called off his engagement and chose a new fiancée. Even worse, he denounced it at a very public event. One of them was initially supposed to remain in the kingdom, and unforeseen circumstances had forced them to attend the meeting. This situation left the prince to rule in their absence. "I thought that everything would be all right since Elizabeth was with him. Who would have thought he'd do something like this?" said the king, sighing. "Even though she's jailed, I'm sure Elizabeth will find a way to fix this," responded Sieg. "That's fair. Your daughter is quite exceptional after all. She is outstanding." Bulat nodded. "All right. We'll leave this to Elizabeth then." Both men sipped on their wine and complained about Fried's lack of wit. Neither of them spared another thought for Elizabeth. No one noticed that the maid standing right outside the door suddenly disappeared. A month went by since my imprisonment. Piles of tax documents, administration materials, and reference books that civil officials had brought to me covered the crude desk in my cell. Ever since the party, Fried hadn't visited me once. Does he not worry about the confidential information in these documents leaking in the dungeon? I flipped through the papers facing me, fed up with the prince's irresponsibility. Though I always knew Prince Fried wasn't the most meticulous, I never would have thought he could be so careless. I whispered to no one in particular. My voice echoed softly in the dungeon. "Oh," I whispered. A few hours passed, and I held a crimson book as I stood up. "Excuse me," I said louder. "What can I do for you, my lady?" asked the guard, monitoring the dungeon in a polite manner. I could tell that he was clearly unhappy to see me behind bars. He had no choice but to obey the prince, currently the most powerful person in the castle. "Could you come closer, please?" Of course." Just then, the man followed my request and walked up to my cell. He was not on guard and could not react in time. I extended my right arm and snapped my fingers, to which his eyes went hollow as his face relaxed. He appeared to be in a daze. The dark attribute spell I'd used, hypnosis, wasn't all that difficult to counter. Why did the guard fall for it so easily then? Perhaps because he had been far too careless. He would never have imagined that a helpless, considerate young lady such as myself would attack him when wearing an anti-magic collar. Besides, many knew my proficiency in water magic. This guard had trained with the knights several times and witnessed me freely wielding water and ice. Everyone knew that, excluding fundamental spells, people could only use attributes they had an affinity for. As such, that guard couldn't have expected me to cast a dark attribute spell. "Go back to your seat and forget everything you're about to see," I said. "Yes, certainly, my lady." The guard wobbled back to his chair and sat down, staring at the air with a vacant expression on his face. "You can come out," I said. There was an unnatural distortion in front of my cell. Then a maid about my age appeared. "I apologize for the wait, my lady," she said. "It's fine, Morel. Thank you for coming." The crimson book I was holding disappeared into thin air. Muriel was my waiting maid, as well as my confidant. I'd asked her to follow the messenger to check His Majesty's and my father's reaction. "So, how did it go?" I asked. "Well," she started. As I listened to Morel recount what she'd heard, I felt a dark rage surge inside me. They were perfectly aware of how serious the situation was, yet they left me to deal with the aftermath. When I thought about it, this had been happening often recently. King Blat summoned me anytime Prince Fried got into trouble to fix it. My father was the same, telling me it was important to uphold Fried's image for the good of the kingdom. So I had to do all the prince's work and ensure he got all the credit. Morel seemed worried for me but continued. "After returning, I found out that rumors that may tarnish your honor were spreading, my lady." "Rumors?" I repeated. "Yes. People are saying that you tried to murder Lady Sylvia out of jealousy, and that you're getting involved in politics to seize the prince's power. They are undoubtedly groundless accusations, but they are spreading nonetheless." "Did you learn the source?" I asked after a pause. "I got some of our people to investigate and pinpointed a few merchants and nobles. They all have ties with the waste of His Highness." "Right," I said with a brief sigh. "How widespread are those rumors?" I'm afraid getting rid of them entirely will prove impossible. The merchants and nobles who know you don't believe a word, but many people already believe them to be true." "I see. As for your firm, my lady," Morel referred to the firm I managed. "After pushing for relief policies and seeing those projects fail due to a lack of funding, I set up a firm when I was 12 to earn money I could spend freely. Over the years, my firm became one of the most influential businesses in the kingdom. I used it to give jobs to as many people while running a charity, helping to reduce the inequalities. The prince has ordered an investigation into it after deeming you a traitor to the nation. He is also actively placing merchants and nobles under his control in key positions at the firm." "This is ridiculous. Even if I'm the suspect of planning a coup, they should only remove me from the firm. What right does the government have to mess with the personnel? There's no legal basis for this, is there?" "There is none. Prince Fried has been misusing his authority and forcing everyone to comply. The executives are standing up to him as much as possible, but they cannot keep the crown prince in check." I clenched my teeth. A shadow passed over Morel's face as she hesitated momentarily. She looked straight at me and said, "I know it's not my place to ask, but why do you devote yourself to this country, my lady?" She struggled to conceal the anger in her voice. "Why, you ask?" I said, then paused. "That's because I'm a noble lady." "Do you believe it's worth it even when they have treated you like this?" she asked. She gritted her teeth in frustration and continued. "My lady, I respect you. You saved me when my house fell to ruin. Without you, I'd be a slave or a beggar. Yet you made me your trusted confidant." "Muriel? She suddenly exclaimed. It surprised me to hear her shout, so I quickly cast Silent, a soundproofing spell, over the entire dungeon. I despise this country. The nobles treat you like a convenient tool that they can discard whenever they please. I hate the masses for turning their back on you after hearing absurd rumors when you've done nothing but help them. And I despise the King and Duke Leaston for relying you all the time and ignoring you when you're in your most dire moment. Above all, I loathe the prince. Morel's voice echoed in the freezing dungeon. I didn't know how to react. Morel was always by my side, discreet like a shadow. She had presented herself as a level-headed person, and I've never seen her let her feelings take over like this. The echoes quieted down, and though I felt her words, her anger permeated my heart. Every emotion I'd repressed all these years, unaware they had existed, exploded like a raging volcano. You're right, I said with a sense of realization. As if answering Morel's outburst, the rage that had welled inside me made my entire body shake. I could feel a fire spreading through my every nerve. The anger I'd felt earlier was nothing but a small ripple, but this overwhelming feeling was my true fury. Why? I whispered. Why did I? Since I came into this world, I'd devoted my entire life to this nation and Prince Freed. As his future queen, my duty was to support this country. I wasn't allowed to make friends, and had to study martial arts, magic, and etiquette relentlessly. What was the point of it all? Oh, we are having a quick ad break, so I am going to take a quick moment, because I already got to refill my water, but I'm going to refill my water, stretch a second, and I will be right back. So give me a moment. And we're back. Alrighty. So, resume where I left off. Since I came into this world, I devoted my entire life to this nation and Prince Freed. As his future queen, my duty was to support this country. I wasn't allowed to make friends and had to study martial arts, magic, and etiquette relentlessly. What was the point of it all? The person I was ready to dedicate my life to had trampled all over me. The nation I'd worked so hard to The nation I'd worked so hard for had abandoned me, and those I'd done everything to protect had betrayed me. I smashed my bare fist into the wall of my cell, which made a very large crack appear with a thunderous noise. Why did I do all this? What was the point? My lady, your magic! Morel's voice brought me out of my trance. I noticed my mana was leaking uncontrollably and took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Thank you, Morel, I said. You've opened my eyes. My lady. Let's leave this damned country. Leave? But what will you do then? She asked. I gave her a smile that came from the bottom of my heart. The raging inferno that was burning in my chest had settled down into a cold fury. Now, I was ready to announce my intentions to the world and make a vow. I'll take revenge. Chapter 1. Escape. I'd take revenge on my homeland. Having made up my mind, I needed to act promptly. I gave Morel several tasks to complete before we could make our escape. That should be all we need, I concluded. Hold on a second. Excuse me. That should be all we need, I concluded. Understood, my lady, stated Morel. What about the firm? How should I deal with it? Let me think. His Highness the Prince. Actually, there was no longer any need for me to respect that scumbag. Freed was replacing my people with his own, obviously seizing control over my firm. In that case, let him replace our people. I'm sure he'll dismiss or demote most of those who are loyal to me, I added. Tell them to leave the country when that happens. They should use different routes at different times to be careful. Our most influential executives and skilled experts are priorities, so have them lay low for a while. Once I've established myself abroad, I'll contact them so we can move forward. Certainly, my lady. I'll pass on your orders. While you're at it, ask a few of our trusted partners to remain in the capital. We'll need them to gather intelligence. Naturally, I'll ask him to select a few suitable individuals for this task. I nodded. Seeing that I had no links with that man, I doubted anyone would make a connection and knew he could handle it. We'll leave in 5 days, Morel, I said, right before the king and his retinue return. I'll leave the preparations to you. Yes, my lady. May your new journey be blessed, she said with a detached tone before bowing. I almost couldn't believe a woman like her had lost her cool entirely earlier. Instead of leaving, though, she stared at me without saying another word. What is it, Morel? I asked. With all due respect, I suggest you do something about that, she said, gesturing at the hole I'd punched into the wall. Right. I completely forgot how I'd hit the wall with mana concentrated around my fist. Unless I did something to hide it, the guards would notice immediately. My decision had agitated me more than expected, and I needed to be careful not to make any mistakes. I couldn't reveal myself until I made my escape. I suppose I'll have to fix it, I said. Hence, I stimulated the mana in my body and gathered it in my left hand. In this world, all living beings have mana. The ability to control it using reason and theory was called magic. A magician's training culminated in the creation of a divine artifact. Since one materialized their inner mana as a divine artifact, everyone had different powers and appearances based on the magician's preference, personality, experience, and other stuff. In most cases, they took the form of a weapon or armor. Most magicians who reached the necessary level to have Most magicians who reached the necessary level had to create a divine artifact because they were knights or adventurers. Basically, people who needed to fight. The exceptions were overzealous researchers and the occasional gifted noble child who trained from a young age. While divine artifacts were usually considered weapons, sometimes those items with no fighting potential would appear. My Grimoire of Wisdom was one such exception, as it took the form of a tome and recorded all the information I'd seen at least once. It could also decode and translate documents for me. Or so I'd told everyone around me. I had kept the true nature of my divine artifact a secret, even from my father and the king. Recording and analyzing data were only a fraction of what I could do. In truth, my real divine artifact had taken the form of 7 powerful tomes, the 7 Grimoires. Keeping an ace up one's sleeve was one of the basics of high society. And so, I hadn't even told my father. No, I should call him the Duke. Someone like him isn't my family. Still, I hadn't told the Duke the truth about my abilities. Even Morel, the person I trusted the most, only knew about 4 of my Grimoires. I hadn't realized it before, but I seemed to have developed trust issues along the way. Grimoire of Beelzebub, I said. Then a crimson tone appeared in my left hand. The Grimoire of Beelzebub was one of the 7 Grimoires, which let me record other people's magic spells. I could cast them even if I didn't have any affinity with their attribute. That was how I'd been able to use the dark attribute spell Hypnosis when I had only had an affinity for water spells. I flipped through the pages of the Grimoire of Beelzebub until I found the right one. Stonewall, I recited. Thanks to my divine artifact, I could activate this Earth's attribute spell without issue. That should do it. Once I concealed the hole I made in the wall, I dismissed Mirelle and made sure she was gone to lift the effects of hypnosis. The guard tilted his head to the side with a puzzled look, probably having very fuzzy memories of the past few moments. I sat back down and started planning my revenge. It feels good to be home, said King Balat. Indeed, Your Majesty. I'm sure Elizabeth took care of government matters in our absence, but that doesn't change how you're needed here, responded Sieg. Balat laughed, saying, My officials always tell me that she does a better job than I do, don't they? The king was a warrior at heart, and aware that he wasn't the best politician. So, how is Freed? Asked the king to one of the officials tasked with supervising Elizabeth and Freed in his absence. I bet he's somewhere sulking because Elizabeth gave him another earful. Well, the thing is, said the official, hesitating. The prince left to, inspect the territory with Lady Locket. The official had made up that excuse on the spot. The truth was that the prince actually took a little trip with his lover. What? How dare he when he knew we'd be back? How dare he when he knew we'd come back today? What is Elizabeth doing? Managing Freed's schedule is her job, the king roared. Lady Elizabeth is in the dungeon, under the prince's order. Duke Sieg yelled in astonishment. Are you saying that Elizabeth is still in jail? No hint of anger or worry lay in his voice. He wasn't mad that his daughter stayed in the dungeon for over a month. It surprised him to hear she had yet to get out. Take us to Elizabeth, exclaimed Balat. He and Sieg followed the civil official to the dungeon in a hurry, where they found an utterly confused guard. The guard snapped out of his daze then greeted the king and prime minister to the best of his ability. Although Bulat was in a sour mood, he knew the guard wasn't to blame for Elizabeth's imprisonment and refrained from doing so. "Where's Elizabeth?" asked Bulat instead. She's in the cell," he said, pointing at it. But... "What is it?" Sieg pressed the slurring guard. Due to Sieg's position as the prime minister and Elizabeth's father, the guard couldn't easily explain the situation. "Well," he said with an apologetic look, "Lady Elizabeth hasn't moved from that chair in 2 days. She hasn't examined the documents we brought her and won't eat anymore." "What?" Bulat and Sieg rushed to Elizabeth's cell, only to find the young woman sitting quietly with her back facing them. They called out to her, but she didn't respond. Despite the guard's comments about Elizabeth not eating, her complexion looked healthy enough from what they could see. "Elizabeth, why aren't you answering?" "Guard, open the door," ordered Bulat. "I'm terribly sorry, Your Majesty, but Prince Fried took the key to Lady Elizabeth's cell with him." Bulat clicked his tongue in anger, then lifted his right hand to make a whirlpool of mana, dense enough to make the air shake appear. The king condensed it into his palm to turn it into a lightning blade. "Divine artifact," chanted Bulat. "Glazer mark." The god of thunder swung his large blade, making a flash of lightning illuminate the room as a blaring roar echoed. He'd cut right through the steel bars of Elizabeth's cell that were as thick as a woman's arm. Bulat dispersed his divine artifact and walked in with Sieg to see Elizabeth. Even with the uproar, she hadn't moved a finger. "Elizabeth," called out Sieg, extending his hand to touch his daughter's shoulder. "She's cold?" Cracks started spreading through her body, until Elizabeth's figure shattered within seconds, and pieces fell to the ground. "What in the world is going on?" shouted Bulat. "Is that an ice doll?" said Sieg, picking up a shard of ice. "I can still feel her mana. She must have placed this doll in her stead 2 days ago, when the guards said she stopped eating." "Where's the real Elizabeth, then?" Neither Sieg nor the guard had an answer to offer their king. Bulat's face went pale. His reaction was justified, as Elizabeth was deeply involved in his kingdom's government. She partook in everything from administration to military affairs. Her disappearance could have terrible consequences. Moreover, her divine artifact, the Grimoire of Wisdom, had recorded countless state secrets throughout the years. That knowledge included top-secret military information such as maps and population details, secret techniques from the castle's forbidden collection, and ancient texts that dated to the Old Kingdom. "Find her! Find Elizabeth at once!" On the day of my escape, I busied myself with the final preparations in my quite familiar cell. I'd already used hypnosis on the guard and was ready to proceed with the plan. "Ice doll," I chanted, creating an icy copy of myself. While I'd used plenty of mana, I was confident the doll would hold for around 10 days if no one touched it. 2 days remained until the king and the duke returned, and I doubted anyone else would dare touch me. No one would figure out I was missing until then. "Oh my, I almost forgot," I said, looking at the doll. I gathered some more mana and added an anti-magic collar around the doll's neck. Fried had ordered the guards to put one on me to seal my magic, yet those things were not useful on me. I had made them after all. Since I'd rediscovered and analyzed forgotten records from the castle's forbidden book collection, I anticipated someone might one day use these artifacts against me. I'd modified their structure a little so that they'd immediately stop working when they came in contact with my mana. "Shall we go, Morel?" "Yes, my lady." Once I stepped out of my cell, I asked the guard a few questions and learned Fried had the key to my cell. That wasn't an issue, though. A touch of ice magic was all I needed to create a duplicate. I closed the cell behind me and left the dungeon with Morel. The guard would snap out of my hypnosis in a short while. Morel and I climbed the stairs and arrived at a door leading us to the corridor. I hadn't been up here in a month. I could feel my anger churning inside. Ever since Morel had helped me come to terms with my feelings, I was much more self-aware. According to her, I was learning how to express myself. Morel, yes, my lady, she said, and then prepared a spell. Illusion. Morel had an affinity for light attribute spells. The one she'd cast, Illusion, allowed you to manipulate the light to trick others. You could use it to conceal yourself or assume the appearance of someone else. Let's go. Now that we were invisible to others, we sneakily walked through the corridors and exited the castle. Having just finished his last report, Lucas Lebrick rested his pen on his desk. He brought his hand to his face and massaged his forehead, closing his eyes. He then sipped black tea, hoping to get over his tiredness. Lucas sighed and said, "I can finally go home." As a Viscount, I had to serve as an ambassador to my country in the Kingdom of Haldoria. My homeland, the U-Tier Empire, was a young nation founded only a century ago. Nevertheless, it had successfully expanded far beyond its original borders and had several nations under its control. The Kingdom of Haldoria was the only nation on this continent that could rival the Empire with military power. Our nations had been at odds for a while, though a distressing war led to the signing of a truce 5 years ago. The Kingdom of Haldoria and the U-Tier Empire were now on friendly terms, publicly at least. My father, the previous head of the family, had suddenly passed away in an accident. This situation forced me to succeed him at the young age of 16. At the time, I was but a noble of the robe, a measly baron with no land. After I turned 20, the Emperor summoned me and granted me the title of Viscount, along with a territory. The land was bigger than any other Viscounty and located on the border with Haldoria. He said it was a reward for my hard work. While it might sound like a dream come true for a young aristocrat, the truth differed. Tensions with Haldoria were rising, so the Emperor used me, a young and insignificant noble with no backing, as a shield. Despite my inexperience, I understood that my newly gained territory was but a buffer zone in the eyes of the Emperor. This time, I received orders to attend the celebration of the founding of the Kingdom of Haldoria. After traveling through the wasteland that was an actual buffer zone inside a carriage until my arse started hurting, I'd reached the royal capital. I proceeded to make small talk with the detestable nobles of the kingdom of the party. Though our words were refined and cultured, our exchanges resembled children's petty arguments. I dreamed of becoming a proud nobleman like my father, but my ideals had long deserted me. All I ever did as a viscount was bicker or empty offer flattery. A sigh escaped my lips as I was bored to death by the emptiness of my function. Suddenly, a commotion attracted my attention. It shocked me to hear the crown prince of the Kingdom of Haldoria publicly condemn his fiancée, the daughter of the Prime Minister. Good grief. Is the prince an idiot? Who airs their dirty laundry in public like this, I thought. A glance was enough to notice how foreign guests mocked him quietly. The Duke's daughter tried to give the prince a chance to stop, yet he failed to take it. Instead, he ordered her imprisonment before announcing that a baron's daughter I'd never heard about would become his new fiancée. Even when taken away, the Duke's daughter didn't bat an eye and marched gracefully. The kingdom's nobles had diverse reactions, as some looked pissed while others were concerned. A few noblemen and women seemed pleased. Among the foreigners, only two reactions unfolded: shock or mockery. I was among the surprised ones. I never thought the prince would do something like this. After all, the young lady he dismissed was quite famous. She'd been behind most of the kingdom's recent advances. At the tender age of 10, she'd led troops into battle to inflict considerable damage on the Empire in the previous war. As an imperial subject, I couldn't be more pleased to see that foolish prince willingly discard the kingdom's trump card. After the commotion, I went to the embassy to write a report detailing the events that had transpired during the party. A month had passed since then, and I had finished the rest of my duties in the kingdom. Tomorrow, I'd finally be free to return home. Lord Lucas, expounded the servant I had brought from the Empire, storming into my office. It's late, what is it? I asked. You have a visitor. A visitor? I don't believe I had any appointments tonight. Who are they? Well, as soon as I heard the name of my mysterious visitor, I jumped from my chair and rushed to the drawing room. I took a deep breath before opening the door. I apologize for the wait, King Balat. The king of the Kingdom of Haldoria was sitting in my drawing room, looking at me as I entered. He hadn't brought an escort, and only a maid accompanied him. I couldn't help but think something was strange. The king was supposed to be out of the country attending a conference regarding a monster attack. Though I heard he'd return soon, I couldn't imagine why he would stop at my residence first. While I was pondering the reason behind this sudden visit, the king stood up and bowed to me. Huh? I blurted, utterly confused. His show of deference made absolutely no sense. In fact, the king should have avoided showing me any signs of weakness because I was the ambassador of the Utir Empire. First of all, allow me to apologize for tricking you like this. The voice that had come out from King Balat sounded oddly soft and melodic. Huh? I repeated, most eloquently. Mirel, said King Balat with that strangely mismatched voice. The maid reacted by bowing deeply before clapping her hands. Was she casting a spell? Or was she banishing one, perhaps? She didn't need to clap, but was most likely doing so to demonstrate that she was using magic and meant no harm. Having concluded that I wasn't in danger, I stopped looking at the maid and directed my sights at the king, but I found a beautiful young woman in his place. I barely stopped myself from letting out a surprised yelp. Lady Elizabeth, I whispered. Elizabeth Leyston, the backbone of the kingdom, stood in front of me. The only issue was that this young lady was supposed to be in jail at this very moment. I bowed down to Lucas Lebrick, the ambassador of the Utir Empire, again to apologize for my impoliteness. Meanwhile, he remained staring at me with his mouth agape. I'd practically forced him to meet with me by concealing my identity. Worst case scenario, he'd instantly point his sword at me for breaking into the embassy. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to complain. It's been far too long, Lord Lucas, I said, seizing the opportunity. I'm Elizabeth from House Leyston. Indeed, long time no see, Lady Elizabeth, he said hesitantly. Forgive me for concealing my identity to see you. I hope you can pardon me, I said. In high society, admitting your faults meant putting yourself in a position of weakness. Had this been a negotiation, the Empire would have had a field day and made the boldest demands. For that reason, I apologized while Lucas was still confused. As long as he didn't overthink it, there was only one proper reaction from him, a cultured gentleman, to have when faced with a young lady's sincere apology. Well, I understand the circumstances that forced you to act this way. Let's put this behind us, my lady, replied Lucas. I am most thankful for your generosity, my lord. Lucas had forgiven me without getting ahead in the negotiation. A A more cunning aristocrat would have set my apology aside and started probing to know what I wanted. I'd expected as much from a young noble like him, but Lucas's reaction showed that he was still green. No takebacks existed in our world. Should he retract later, it would hinder his honor. I'd played my cards correctly. Bowing my head was well worth it if I could avoid tangible losses. I didn't need to worry about my dignity as a future ruler, so I had no reason to allow meaningless pride to impede me. "So, Lady Elizabeth," Lucas started, "could you tell me why you're visiting me at such an hour? Besides, aren't you supposed to be in jail?" He'd calmed down, but I'd yet to notice that he'd wasted a card he could have used against me. I hid my real intentions behind a smile and said, "I'm here because I would appreciate being granted asylum in the Empire." Lucas naturally froze. I was the daughter of a duke, not some soldier or insignificant noblewoman, and had a hand in government affairs. The latter was information not known to the public. Still, I had no doubt that the Empire's spies knew about my involvement in politics. After a long pause, he finally answered, "Are you being serious?" "As serious as can be." "While I agree that Prince Fried's conduct of the party was disgraceful, the king and your father will return soon. They'll discipline him and put you back and place you back in your position." "They will. The king would never let the crown prince pick that woman over me. My issue is that my patience has reached its limits, and I can no longer tolerate their irresponsibility. I intend to leave the kingdom of Haldoria and put all my energy into taking revenge." You want to take revenge?" "Indeed," I confirmed. "You must have heard the dreadful rumors that are spreading about me, Lord Lucas." "I suppose I have." "Then, don't you think asking me to forget all about all this and still dedicate myself to this country would be too much?" Lucas stared at me, unable to answer. "I will get my revenge," I said again. "And I'll crush this damned country with my own two hands." "Huh?" cried out Lucas for the umpteenth, looking dumbfounded. "I'm sure you realize your actions will affect the citizens, knowing how much you've done for them. Can you truly bear to hurt them?" "You're right. I am directing my anger at the prince, the king, the duke, and the other ministers. Oh, and Robert. As you said, the citizens of this kingdom will get caught up in this and face irreparable harm." Lucas remained silent. However, I fail to see how that's my problem. "What?" "As a noblewoman, I have a duty to the people," I said. "And yet, the very people I devoted my life to betrayed and threw me out like a rag. Once I surrender my title, I shall bid farewell to the duties accompanying it. I have no intention to hurt the masses, but I will not make an effort to protect them." "I see," answered Lucas, a bit unnerved. "So, would you grant me asylum?" "Well," said Lucas, resting a chin on his head. "I'm not asking for any kind of leadership role," I insisted. "Simply allowing me to seek refuge in your territory would be more than enough." "Why did you choose the Empire?" he asked with a brief pause. "Even though our nations pretend to be friendly, we're basically enemies. Wouldn't you have more freedom in another country? Or better yet, on another continent?" "That is a fair point, Lord Lucas. I doubt I can live as I please in the Empire. But I would like to reiterate that my goal isn't to flee and live in peace. Rather, I want to get even with those who have wronged me." I paused before continuing. "The kingdom of Haldoria is a strong nation, even with a foolish king who only reveals his true self in war. His army is powerful, with plenty of competent individuals in the administration, starting with the Duke. Though I'm fairly strong, I cannot challenge such an opponent alone. Does that mean you want the military backing of the Empire? Asked Lucas, narrowing his eyes. His mana suddenly erupted, turning into sharp thorns. Mirelle instantly prepared for combat, and I stopped her with one hand. I smiled at Lucas, then related. I may intend to rely on the Empire's strength, but will not discard it like a tool when I see fit. What I offer is a give and take. I'll crush the kingdom and offer the spoils of war and glory to the Empire in exchange for its help. I believe we'll all benefit from this arrangement. You have a gift for making enticing proposals, Lucas said. Certainly I do, I answered. Still, I assure you, I meant every single word. The Utir Empire is the only nation that rivals the Kingdom of Haldoria, and is the best partner I could dream of. I see. I'll make sure you also benefit from our collaboration, Lord Lucas, I added with a smile. Lucas banished his mana and sighed. All right, he said. I'll allow you to join our side. But you must understand, I cannot immediately take you to the Imperial capital. You won't be free to wander as you please, and you must remain in my territory on the border until I finish monitoring you. Do you accept those terms? Of course. That is fine by me. I never expected him to let a central figure of Haldoria's government roam free in the Imperial capital out of the blue. That was enough for now. I had to earn Lucas's trust, one step at a time. To a most fruitful collaboration, I declared, grinning. A single unsuspecting carriage made of quality materials, appreciated at close range, moved toward the northern gate of the royal capital. The lone horse that pulled it was also a remarkable animal. Halt, ordered an on-duty guard at the gate. Under normal circumstances, the guards would inspect the carriages. As soon as they read the note the coachman provided, they stepped back and straightened their posture. This is Lord Lucas's carriage? I'm terribly sorry for stopping you. Please proceed, said the guard as his colleagues opened the gate in a hurry. I could see the capital through the small gap between the curtains and shifted slightly to sit closer to Morel. Ambassadors sure get special treatment, I said, looking at Lucas as he sat in front of me. I would never have made it out of the capital so easily by myself. Don't jest, my lady. You found your way out of the capital just fine, did you not? He answered with a forced smile. It was all a little ironic. How come you have such a small escort? I asked. Lucas didn't seem to mind my changing this topic so blatantly. I can't help it, he said. My Viscounty may be on the large side, yet I'm not as influential as you might think. I had to pick between numerous escorts and an effective one. It was a bit of a headache. So you sacrifice numbers for quality. In other words, your guards are the cream of the crop. Lucas had only 5 guards, an escort far too modest for the ambassador of a mighty empire. They were all riding on horseback next to the carriage. Indeed, I feel much safer with 5 reliable warriors by my side rather than 20 mediocre blades. A small elite force also costs less to maintain. I see. I must say I'm a little confused, though. You're here as an ambassador. Shouldn't the Emperor provide you with knights? I'm afraid not, Lucas said, sighing. He pressed his forehead as if he had a headache. I was a measly noble of the robe not so long ago. My territory and title are recent developments. When I heard that, I reached a single conclusion. The Emperor is using you, a young and easy-to-control nobleman, as a shield. On top of that, he sends you to deal with the ever-annoying King Balat. You saw right through me, Lucas laughed, smiling instead of blaming me for being overly frank. Indeed, you're correct. Despite ending up in an uncomfortable position, only those can lead to great things if taken advantage of. I don't believe it'll happen in my generation, he shrugged, but doing well might guarantee my future child becomes a count someday. After a few days, we finally got out of the wasteland that separated the kingdom and the empire to enter the capital of the Livid Viscounty. Along the way, we'd encountered monsters the 5 guards with us swiftly took care of. Just like Lucas had said, they were strong. We passed through the gate and went up to the main street toward Lucas's residence, which stood at the heart of the city. Some citizens cheered when they recognized the Libric carriage. "You're quite popular here, my lord," I commented. "I may not look the part, but I treat my people earnestly," he responded proudly. This scene was a little too dazzling for me. "This city is full of life," Muriel said, staring through the window. I sensed the admiration in her voice. "And I noticed various races live here," I added. About half of the people I saw in the streets were humans, and the other half consisted of elves, dwarves, beastmen, halflings, and other demi-humans. I wasn't used to this since humans made up the majority in the royal capital. The few demi-humans there were adventurers, mercenaries, or temporary visitors who weren't citizens. None of them had the same rights. "The Utir Empire is very diverse," stated Lucas. "Several nations are under our jurisdiction, and we believe in respecting every culture. Besides, my Viscounty is located on the fringes of the Empire. Not to mention, there's a nearby dungeon that is popular with adventurers." While the Kingdom of Haldoria technically recognized demi-human rights, the country's long history of human supremacy had hindered progress. Many still discriminated against demi-humans and, deep down, didn't see them as equal to humans. The Empire, on the other hand, was a young nation. It had always been diverse and never stifled by the weight of its history. With this in mind, the Empire was a much more promising place. After chatting for a while longer, we reached the Libric residence. Lucas led me to a room. "Please use this room for the time being," he said. "Thank you, Lord Lucas." I enjoyed the softness of the luxurious bed for the first time in over a month. The following morning, I joined Lucas to discuss the next step. We sat across from each other, a table separating us. "So, Lady Elizabeth, may I inquire about your plans?" he asked. "My first step will be building myself a decent foundation. While we're on the topic, I have a couple of requests." "Let's hear them," he said, then gestured to his butler to serve him another cup of tea. The butler naturally extended his courtesy, so I ate one of the cookies he had brought out. "First of all, I would like your approval to conduct business in this city," I said. "I'll need money to establish myself in the Empire and gain power." "I'll allow it. Knowing you used to manage an influential firm, I believe a promising business will strengthen the local economy." "Thank you, my lord," I said, bowing to him. "That brings me to my second request. As you know, one cannot hope to start a business with no capital. So, would you kindly lend me 100 gold coins?" 100 gold coins, huh?" repeated Lucas, putting his hand up to his chin. He seemed to do that whenever he needed to think. I was asking for a significant sum. With that amount, a commoner family of 4 could get by for several years. Once I'd estimated Lucas's tax revenue based on the size of his territory and looking at the state of his residence, I was sure he could easily afford it. What he was considering was whether there was any point in handing out such a large sum to a young girl with no influence like me. "Please take a look at this, my lord," I said, presenting a piece of paper. "A magic contract? It's of high quality at that." As the name suggested, a magic contract was a covenant that bound both parties. When signed, The contract's content would etch into your soul and force you to abide by its terms. The power of the binding magic depended on the quality of the contract. One of poor quality would only make you feel a bit sick if you broke its terms. My contract, though, was of the highest quality because a signatory who had failed to fulfill it would die. The conditions are... "Are you insane?" remarked Lucas after reading through it. "Why the fuss, my lord?" According to the contract I'd handed him, I had to pay Lucas double his investment within a year. If I failed to do so, I would become his slave. He could then sell me to someone else to recoup his losses or assume ownership of my person. Lucas stared at me like I was a lunatic. I suppose in his eyes, I am a lunatic. 1 year, I said. That's all the time I need to cover this table in gold. When I looked at her on that day, ready to gamble with her life, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I felt like a child who'd lost his parents in the crowd, like a young boy wandering through the darkness, like an adventurer peering into a dragon nest. Though she had barely come of age, I felt like I stood in front of a wild beast whenever I looked at her. Dread filled my heart, yet a spark of excitement bloomed, so small and faint that I almost failed to notice it. After those cunning aristocrats had used me, I had the impression that my chance to claim glory had finally come. I got a glimpse of its radiant shine. But I couldn't explain why. All I knew was that this girl held something mysterious that stirred up hope inside me. Excerpt from the Memoirs of Lucas Lebrick Haldoria, Archduke of the Dukedom of Haldoria. So, that was the first couple of parts from a Livid Lady's Guide to Getting Even, how I crushed my homeland with my mighty grimoires. So what'd you guys think? It's a pretty interesting story. Right now, Volume 1 just released, and so, at least the English version of Volume 1, I should say. It's a pretty good story. I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not this one gets eventually an anime adaptation. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the stories and stuff that I put out tonight. So, this was kind of, like I said, I'm in the process of testing this 3D software. Because I had some issues with my throat and my voice and everything, I didn't do a whole lot of streams last year after coming down with a really, really bad case of laryngitis. So I've been kind of taking it easy. But I can kind of tell that my voice is still a little fried. I need to probably keep doing some more exercises to kind of get it back to pretty much being stable again. So it's been it's been over 3 hours. It's been about 3 hours and about 19 minutes. And I'm still cracking up. For those of you who are kind of coming in because you see like anime girl, and then you come in and you suddenly hear welcome, deep men's voice or whatever else. I apologize. I'm just using the default model for the 3D software tracking while I'm finishing up my main model. But I wanted to test and see how well this would actually hold up for a decent length stream. So anyway, it's no, I'm not the whole guy pretending to be an anime girl, whatever else. It's no, this is just the model, But a lot of people do think it's a cute model, but to be perfectly honest. This is one of the default models apparently that comes with Vroid Studio, so hey. I just think it's kind of cool because the software that I'm testing uses webcam tracking. So not only does it do face expressions and everything and head movements, it also has like hand tracking, like literally both hand tracking and stuff. So I can actually do stuff like this and and it actually works really well. Complete finger articulation. I don't know why I get a kick out of constantly doing this, but whatever. But anyway. So, I think because it's been about 3 hours and 20 minutes, and again, I'm trying to ease back into things, I am probably going to go ahead and call it here for the night. Hopefully I'll be getting back to doing longer streams again. Not barring the collabs I've been doing with Bez on Sundays, playing 7 Days to Die. Which, by all means, if you guys actually want to check out my friend Bez. He's a variety spider streamer. He does a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, we play what you call it? We play like 7 Days to Die quite a bit on Sundays and stuff. So at least for now, we'll probably be switching over, and eventually we'll be doing collabs, doing like other games like Project Zomboid and stuff like that. My boy's a serious zombie fanatic, so. And yeah, it seems like my shoutouts still aren't working, so there's still a few more things I need to troubleshoot. But yeah, go check him out on Twitch, things like that. And anyway, I will catch you guys later. So, thanks again for dropping by, whether you were here kind of chilling in the background or, came in, had a look around and bugged out. Appreciate you stopping by. And again, I like doing a lot of chill vibes like this, so I play a lot of chill games and also do like different reading ASMR type stuff. So, alright, I'm gonna go ahead and head out while my voice is still fried, so you guys have a good night. And thanks again, Bez. Good hanging out with you. Take it easy. You have a good night too. See you soon. Bye.